Hey guys, welcome to Box Office Addict, my weekly live stream podcast show where we look at the weekend box office and break down the numbers and talk about expectations versus reality of the performance and how it affects the studio, how it affects the actors, Hollywood, the industry, certain genres of movies. Plus, we just talk about movies here. So it's a movie discussion show with box office. But last week, I didn't focus on the box office enough. I got a little sidetracked talking about Star Wars for like the first 45 minutes of the show. So this week, I'm going to try to stay a little bit more on topic. How are you doing? Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here. Little upset today. I just watched the Steelers lose their first playoff game against Jacksonville. 42-45, came down to the end. Bad onside kick call by Mike Tomlin. Or it probably wasn't even Mike Tomlin that made that call, but yeah, bad onside kick call. Kind of ruined the game. What could have been a tied game. So now I have to watch Jacksonville play the Patriots in the championship, which I'm not very excited about because not a big Patriots fan here. So that's going to suck. But here we hope for Philly, I guess, on the other side. So I'm a little down, I'm a little unhappy. I was up there watching them lose the game while I was eating my, I guess, dinner. It wasn't really lunch, I was eating dinner. But I was thinking about the box office. There was a lot of things on my mind about just Star Wars and how it's performing and how people are talking about it. Because, you know, with Last Jedi, for months, people predicted that the film would perform below Force Awakens. I mean, that was what every box office analyst had said. There was nobody that was saying it was going to perform as better than Force Awakens. Every website I went to, Deadline wasn't saying that. Box Office Pro, Box Office Mojo, Hollywood Reporter, nowhere was claiming that this was going to make that $2 billion worldwide that Force Awakens did. And you shouldn't claim that, honestly. I made it in time. Hey man, good. Tom Coughlin has New England's number. You still have the Penguins. Oh no, we have the best hockey team. Yeah, no question. That's not even like a contest. Like, the Penguins are legit the best. Like, they're so good. Hey Pat, do you think the 2D animation will ever come back as popular as it was before? No. No, I do not. I don't think it'll ever be as popular as it was. It doesn't mean it won't be popular. I mean, you got to think, a lot of TV shows are still... actually, no, most TV shows on today aren't even straight up just 2D animation. A lot of them are 3D, like the Ninja Turtle show. So I don't know. I don't really think so. Unfortunately, I think 2D animation, at least in the context of America, in the United States here, I think that it's kind of like silent films or something. It's kind of like one of those... It's like a lot of things. It's like a lot of things that were big at one time. Like, that's like, are Westerns going to be as big as they ever were? Probably not. That doesn't mean there won't be a popular Western movie, like a True Grit. But do I think 2D will ever be back to where it was? No. I don't think there'll ever be another Lion King where a 2D animated film can make that kind of money. I just don't see it. Every time they come out with a 2D animated film, they don't do well here. You know, remember Princess and the Frog? That didn't do great here. That pretty much was a bomb here. It only made like $100 million. So there's no incentive to make 2D animated films, and YouTube doesn't, the algorithm's not set up for people. Is The Last Jedi still in the top 10? Yes. The Last Jedi did have a big drop this weekend though, but that was going to happen. Hey Pat, have you ever played Mass Effect? Yes, of course. Like everyone else, I played the Mass Effect trilogy when it came out. So a lot of the discussion, though, was that the film wouldn't do as well as Force Awakens, as I've already said. And then the opening weekend happened, and it overperformed. 220 was like the high end of the predictions. A lot of people were predicting 190 to 210. I was even saying 210 to 220, but I was thinking more 210. I would have never thought 220 realistically. So it overperformed on its opening weekend, a worldwide opening. I think what that did was create this problem where now the movie's performing about at the level that a lot of us thought it was going to perform at. A lot of us who were checking the tracking and looking at it and kind of predicting just based off this kind of movie as opposed to what Force Awakens was. And this is about what I thought. I thought probably 1.3 billion to 1.5 billion. I remember even a lot of us were in here saying 1.3 billion, and that looks like where it's going to end up because the movie's bombed in China, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But because it did so well on its opening weekend and overperformed, a lot of websites were then saying the film was going to make 1.5, 1.6 billion. Well, then after that opening weekend, and one holiday weekend, New Year's weekend, now every weekend the film's kind of falling back, and now it's settling in at that spot where it's like, okay, this isn't going to perform as well as The Force Awakens. In fact, it's pretty far off, and there's an article on Forbes I'm going to look at here that talks about how this is one of the biggest drops for a sequel that there's ever been for a movie. It's a big decline. Now, everyone's going to say that's just because it's a middle film, and that's true. Empire didn't do as well as Return of the Jedi or the first film. And Attack of the Clones was the lowest grossing film out of the 3 films, and Revenge of the Sith still came out and made a lot of money. It is true with Star Wars, but we live in a different world now, too, where Star Wars films are you know, making... I mean, granted, adjusted for ticket price inflation, those films were billion-dollar films. Isn't it also marketing affecting 2D films? I think it's interest. I don't really... Hey, Pat, did you say you dislike Criterion Collection? No, I've never said that ever, that I dislike the Criterion Collection. I own several Criterion... Not several, I own like 40. It did drop 94% in screens in China. Yeah, I've never said anything negative about Criterion. Any thoughts on Rian Johnson's explanations for The Last Jedi and all the reasons journalists pull out of their butts in order to defend it? Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say about that, but I don't want to make this whole episode about this movie and ignore the box office, because the box office is worth discussing. The first 4 weeks from Disney are next week up. Okay, so... and basically on Rian Johnson's comments, it's upsetting because I thought that what he was going to say was going to make the movie better. And everything he's so far been saying in defense of the things in the movie make the movie worse. They really do. Because the stuff he's saying is basically just defending it by the context of, well, the original trilogy did this, so I should be able to do this because the original trilogy did this. Which just shows some kind of level of arrogance even. But not just that, his explanations for these things of why Luke does this, or why it's this way, or what they were doing with the Force, they're so simplistic. I had theories in some of my videos. I was explaining stuff that the directors did, and my explanations have way more depth than the stuff he's been saying. My explanations for what I interpreted those scenes to mean have way more meaning. Actually, hearing Rian Johnson talk about it, it's like, oh crap, you really didn't know what you were doing. This really is just a convoluted mess. Like, I was giving him credit. I thought that he at least was working so hard to have this subtext and this commentary and this deconstruction and these themes. And I thought, well, okay, you're at least trying to do that. You're trying to make something a little bit more artsy. But now that I've seen him in interviews, it's clear, or it's read his Twitter, it's like, oh, never mind. This was just like... I'm under the opinion that this is really just paychecks to him and just getting paid, and yeah, everything he says is so passionless, it's so uninteresting. It goes right back to Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan claiming they walked around for hours and had these amazing conversations about what to do with the characters, and then you go see Force Awakens and you're like, wait, that's what you talked about? I think Rian Johnson, I think there's a lot of stuff we don't know about the behind the scenes of the movie. I think there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about what was going on during filming. And I especially think that just him in general, I'm really not liking him. I used to like Rian Johnson as a person in interviews and stuff like that. But the more I've seen interviews with him, 40. Did you just say you own 40 Criterion? Yeah, I own 40 Criterion discs. At least. I own a lot of them. I own a lot of them. Hey, Pat, do you use Fantasy Movie League? If you do, go about calculating who you think will perform well. Well, crap, I would dominate that. Well, imagine the pressure Kathleen Kennedy put on RJ and all of those Ghost Riders. It does feel like there was a lot of Ghost Riders. It really does. And at very specific moments of that movie, too, it feels like other people worked on that script. How did stuff like Justice League do in China, I wonder? Obviously, Star Wars is an absolute flop there, but how do the others flops compare? I mean, China's starting to become a bust. The whole reason to release films in China was because you got this big boost, even though you only got to keep, I think, 25% of the ticket revenue. The problem is that a lot of the films that are doing well in China are Chinese releases. They're domestic releases. A lot of our films aren't getting over there and making that much money right now. The Wolf Warrior 2 made $870 million. So that whole thing about the Chinese box office being this, like, salvation for America isn't really panning out after the first few years of it. It's coming off more and more that all these big franchises aren't going to get a big boost in China. Star Wars never caught on there. They never showed the original trilogy there theatrically. I think they show it on television. But you just think for being a space story and all that, movies like that would do well. Like Transformers does well there. But no, China's actually becoming a market that I think Hollywood bet too much on. I think they thought that they could just have any movie make money there, but it's clear what works for a Chinese audience is something that you can't predict. And they clearly like films. They like their own movies a lot of the time, too. I mean, Star Wars is getting beat by several Chinese films. You know, that's... And you could make the argument after this that Disney shouldn't even release the next film in China, and I don't think they should. There's clearly no audience for Star Wars in China, and why go through the hassle? China might not even let them release the movie there, is what the Forbes article said, because there's no benefit to anyone to open it there. China's not big on black people in movies, that's for sure. People who claim otherwise don't know how that... Even in the marketing, they take black people out of the posters in China. It's pretty crazy. But... Yeah, no, it's a known thing. It's not like, it's a pretty open thing that the Chinese do not like black films. They do not like actors. I even around the world in general, like Will Smith, he is one of the only black actors who has international pull. A lot of black actors have no pull internationally. I'm not saying that to sound messed up. That's just true. It's this weird thing. A lot of the world is not embracing of black lead actors or any of that. America has no issue with it, but despite what they try to tell you on the news and at award shows that we don't like black people, even though there's movies all year round overrepresenting black people. It was even funny at the Golden Globes. They came up and said at one point that Asians represent 5% of the speaking roles in Hollywood. And then I went and looked up how many Asians live in the U.S., and they were 6% of the population. So I'm like, wait, 6% of the population is 5% of the speaking roles in Hollywood. Well, that just makes sense. That just makes absolute sense. It's not even like, what's the argument there then? That they have to be overrepresented by population because for other Asian people to grow up and want to be actors and be in movies? But the problem is that they're only 6% of the population. They're seeing exactly the right amount of Asian actors and stuff. It's even like black actors. They're 13% of the population, and they're more than that in movies, if not around. I mean, it's pretty even when you actually look it up. It's pretty even across the board. It's just they try to skew the numbers for some reason into showing some kind of racial bias, but it never actually holds up when you break it down. Even last year, the Academy Awards, 35% of the nominees were black in categories for 13% of the population. So they were overrepresented by the Academy Awards last year. They were overrepresented, just like the LGBT community, gay community, is overrepresented. There's an LGBTQ section on Netflix, okay? There's only like 2% of the population is like LGBT, so they're way overrepresented. There's several shows like Will and Grace and that are about, even though I don't love those shows, but there's a lot of that. And yeah, they have their own section, and they always get nominated. It's always overrepresentation. So I don't really know if they know the statistics of how many of those people there actually is. I think they assume that like 30% of the country's gay, or like 30% of the country's black, or like 25%'s Asian or something like that. I think they assume that's how the country's spread out, but that's not how it's spread out at all. And movies in Hollywood are just a reflection of just the America we live in right now. It's not really that much more complicated than that. If you want to add something to it, you could. You want to make some kind of sociological argument, sure, but I think it's a waste of time. Even Denzel does bad in international. He does. Denzel has no international pull. None of his films do that well internationally. Most of his films are domestic. I mean, they can make money, But and I think it's screwed up. That's just one of those things. In a lot of markets around the world, black actors have not been able to break out. A lot of the big markets too. China and Japan don't have the good relation, it seems, but certain products can do fine. The Nintendo Switch isn't officially distributed there, but people are accepting of it. Oh. Western products can do fine in China too. For movies, it might be different though. Yeah, good point. I'm not trying to get political here. It just gets annoying because just these award shows, all they're talking about is representation, where people are being their representation is equal to the amount of people that live here. Yet they won't go on there and talk about how the LGBT community is overrepresented. Well overrepresented by far. They're way above the numbers that exist, and it's like, okay. You only care when it's white straight people, when it's straight white people that are represented a lot in movies and TV shows. That's the only time that it's a problem. It's not that it's actually about numbers and equal numbers, whatever the hell equality means to you, because equality is your own subjective point of view. Like 48 and like people get to decide what equal means. Equal's a very subjective thing because there's way too many factors to consider. It's such a blanket term. Yeah, let's not bring up the Jewish thing. I mean, it's true. If we're talking about overrepresentation, again, Jesus, Hollywood, if we're just saying, yeah, being Jewish, Jesus. Holy crap. And nobody brings that up. If you bring that up, you're racist, which I don't think you should bring that up, but it's stupid to bring up, but yet they bring up the Asian thing, like that's supposed to be some kind of valid point. It's like, do you not know Asian cinemas all over the world? That Japan has its own film scene, Korea has its own film scene, China has its own film scene. They don't cast white actors in those movies. They don't need white actors. They seem to think Asian people need some help. Asian cinema is alive and well all over the world. There's plenty of Asian actors getting a lot of work. So it's kind of ridiculous. Don't the Chinese also hate the choreography in the new Star Wars films? That's what I've heard. I don't know. I have no idea how they feel about the Star Wars film. It just seems like they don't really care, like they have no emotional attachment to Star Wars. If anything, American media seems to be more welcoming to different ethnicities than other... We are. The West is all about multicultural. The West is the Western values is taking other cultures and things and embracing them, these good aspects, and mixing them into your culture. That's one of the great things about living here and other parts of the world that are like that's so great is that having sushi, because it's awesome, all these things from other parts of the world, it's great. Cultural appropriation is one of the best things that's ever happened ever. It's great. I'm completely pro-cultural appropriation. It's a great thing. We should appropriate cultures, and we should cut out all the bad things of the past and keep all the good things about cultures and keep them alive in our way, because I don't respect anyone's culture or some kind of preservation of it. I don't. Those people are dead. The world moves on despite that. Mother Nature moves on. I'm going to eat sushi. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Equal to me means just make the movie and entertain me and shut the F up and stop pandering and destroying established lore. We're being cucked. I love my straight white Tom Cruise. Oh my goodness. Markets cater to their audience. Look at Bollywood. Yes, and this is true for all of the world, and the same goes for America. It's no different anywhere else. And you can say, well, we're a melting pot. We are, but there's only so many... They seem to think that there's this unlimited supply of great Asian actors, and there's not more white actors to take those roles. If 6% of the population's Asian, how many of them are actors? Probably, I'm assuming not the entire 6%. Okay, if the majority of the country is white, the number of actors that come out of there would be way more, just because there's a lot more white people in America, just like there'd be a lot more Asian actors in Japan, by far. So the likelihood the casting would be more white people just falls under numbers. It's just the averages balancing out. Unless you have the assumption that Asian actors are somehow better than any white actor. But if race doesn't matter, which it doesn't when it comes to acting, then it's just the number of actors who go audition and go to parts. And of course there's going to be more white people because there's more white people. That's all it is. I mean, I hate to make it that simple, but that's how simple it is. It's just not... There's going to be 100 white people going to that audition and maybe 1 or 2 Asian guys. You're just not. And there's lots of Asian. I love John Cho. There's a lot of Asian. I wish had a better career and got more work. But it's just, you know, how many actors are going out auditioning that are Asian compared to like other race? I'm sure that not as many. It just doesn't make sense. 90% of actors come from non-working class backgrounds because they can extend the delusion for longer with trust funds. Tenacity, man. Not giving up. Not giving up is just as important at being good at something, if not more important. Video output low. All right, sorry about that, guys. I need to quit going on that tangent. That's a stupid tangent to go on. I'm basically just saying that before you hear that stuff's easy to fall into a trap of. If you see it on the news or you hear about it in Orchard, you might think, man, they're being really racist and biased and bigoted towards these groups of people. But if you actually go look at the statistics, I'll just go look at the numbers of population, it makes a lot more sense. They're just never going to say that to you because they're going to use whatever they can to get sympathy and push some agenda. But if they actually explained it to you, it would make a lot more sense. So don't get fooled by that stuff that you hear. It's a really easy way to get people on the to skew numbers, like the wage gap. It's a number skewing thing to make it look like there's some inequality disadvantage when really you can explain it in a very simple way. But people just take that they just look at that in a very generic, broad way and say, look at this. This shows inequality. You know, which. It's just stupid. It's a lazy way to argue. It's a lazy way to try to make a point. It's a manipulation of statistics, which is what most people do with statistics. They just manipulate them to try and make their argument. But if you take a statistic class, you know that a statistic does not mean a bias exists. It just shows you that numbers exist for whatever reason. But people associate an automatic bias with the statistics. Or they claim they're a sociologist. They claim that they have the social science degree. Even though you see, you know, they may not. They may not actually be doing the proper vetting of these things to get to any kind of truth. There's a lot of debate within sociology about this. And there's even a lot of YouTubers who are social scientists who call out a lot of what they call false social scientists and all that stuff. So there's a lot of that, or a lot of debates about this stuff. As a black guy, I don't care anymore. I just want to see good movies. That's all I think anyone wants to see, my friend. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. As long as you're in a good movie, I don't care. I watch movies from all over the world. I've always been a fan of international cinema, so movies have never been a white thing to me. I've always watched films I've seen as many Asian films as I have anything else. You know, I've seen God, if you're just going off South Korea, they probably make my favorite movies. I love, you know, so you get, you know, yeah, I don't ever really view movies as a white thing, but they sure do talk about it that way. Equality and diversity is culture editing for the unwashed masses because many do hold view. Unfortunately, some racist views are correct. Oh, Jesus. You know when parents are overprotective and it makes their children pull insane stunts? Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, Aiden Paladin. See, Aiden Paladin's both a problem and a good thing. Like, she does complain about other social scientists, and she does so with, you know, validity. But then she also talks outside of her field. I hate to bring up the Destiny debate again, but in the Destiny debate, she kept bringing up how she was a scientist when they were talking about climate change. Now, I know she's come out and said later, like, hey, I screwed up in that Destiny debate. But it's like, okay, you're a social scientist. You can't keep trying to... Like, she kept saying, I'm a scientist when talking about climate change. It's like... Yeah, nothing about being a social scientist really correlates to that field, and that gets a little annoying, but she doesn't really do that anymore. Most of her stuff stakes on, I think she has a PhD in media psychology, which sounds like a really, 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 really easy degree to get, a really, really, really easy PhD to get, but I'll just leave that there. Probably most people here just want good movies. I just watch movies for escapism. I mean, I watch movies for a reflection of life and meaning and subtext and political messages. I just think you have to do it properly. A lot of the modern movies and a lot of their messages are laughable. I mean, they're simplistic. They're at the level of a 16-year-old who started to just read certain types of literature. I mean, there's nothing that's challenging. There's not a truth being revealed to you that you didn't see. It's a lot of things that were already explored in older films much better by much wiser directors and writers. Yeah, Del Toro, Iñárritu, Iñárritu's won the Oscar. Del Toro, yeah, Alfonso Cuarón. They've all been winning Oscars the last few years. I think Aiden has a wonderful voice. Yes, she has a great speaking voice. She has one of the best voices on YouTube, actually. Very charming. Talks really fast, too. The Front Line is another great movie from South Korea. Hey, Pat, I'm loving the Mass Effect trilogy. My only issue is that it was clear EA tried to water down the RPG elements in favor of making it Gears. Definitely, the RPG elements are definitely toned down, unfortunately, in that game series. Not nearly as good as it should be. And you watch movies for a possibility that the girlfriend will give you a film-going surprise. Jesus Christ, people. You guys are all really bad. Bad people. But I think that the problem though is that it's not that politics and movies are becoming this fine line that all the late night talk show hosts are political now, or that all the movies are clearly pushing a message, because it was always that way. If you go back to the 70s, most of the movies were pushing some kind of message. It's just the quality of the filmmaking doesn't match it. You're allowed to have a message like that if your movie or work of art is good enough to make that argument that you're the person who should be saying this. The problem is a lot of the movies today are not good enough to be that movie. You're kind of sitting there going, well, man, where do you get off even saying this? You know, where do you get off thinking that you're the one who gets to say this and push this in my face? And your film, quite frankly, doesn't meet the standard. Like, Mother's a perfect example, Aronofsky, where it's like, this film isn't good enough to warrant the everything you're putting in here. It's just not, and you're not good enough to pull this off. And anyone who gives this a pass is just overpraising you, because they don't want to reveal the Emperor has no clothes. It's the same thing with the people who gave a pass to Inherent Vice. This happens all the time. Blue is the Warmest Color is a terrible movie, where it just seemed like the director was making a porno, and it wins the Palme d'Or. You can't call people out. It gets ridiculous over and over again. You'll see these terrible movies, but they're art. They're works of art. They're beautiful works of art. And it's like, not really. Yes, I did not like Mother. That's the thing. Every time I've read anyone defend Mother, talk about how they like it, it's just like giving a pass to the most pretentious film student kind of trash. Any of it. It really is. It's just saying that this is okay. It's all obvious. The allegories are obvious, all of them. The Adam and Eve stuff, the Mother Nature stuff, the biblical, everything about it's obvious. There's nothing about it that warrants analysis. It's all there. It's obvious. And then that's all the film is allegory, really. That's all it becomes. It's no longer a movie, really. It just becomes... And once again, Aronofsky's not smart enough and talented enough to pull that off. It's just, there's not enough substance there for him to say, I'm going to write a script in 5 days and then make it. It just, you're not good enough for that. I'm sorry. I don't think there's many directors who have ever lived that are that good that could write a script in 5 days and shoot it. I don't think anyone should really do that. That's a terrible idea. But that comes from arrogance and guilt and insecurities and all sorts of things that a lot of filmmakers today seem to have. Trying to prove themselves in this, not knowing their voices either. It gets really annoying. I'm sick of filmmakers. It seems like every movie they just jump and they don't really build anything from movie to movie. You know, like Rian Johnson's a great example. He really could have taken the foundation of Brick and really broke it down into something that led on to his other films. But then he tried to go into science fiction like Looper, and now he's doing Star Wars and Breaking Bad, and they just don't connect. He's a good director technically, but what he's good at with dialogue or beats, it seems like he's really good at crime stuff. Like Breaking Bad and Brick have this crime element to them, as in particular Breaking Bad. But everything outside of that is really, really lackluster just from a writing standpoint. See, I don't think Blue is the Warmest Color has any... I think it has no good sex scenes. I think it has a good scene where she masturbates. I think all the sex scenes are terrible. There wasn't any good sex scenes. They're like 15-minute still shots of the two girls just having sex like a porno, and they have no emotion to them. They're lifeless. They're toneless. And the actresses talk about how uncomfortable they were. Anyone who gives those sex scenes a pass, I have a problem with that. Those are really... That's not art at that point. That's like killing something on camera. Because the lead actress in that movie is amazing. She really is. She's amazing, and the first hour is pretty good, but once that first sex scene kicks in, the movie gets terrible. Blue is the Warmest Color was good because it was done with a real-time pace. I guess after the first... I don't really watch movies to see things in real time, in particular when the movie didn't have a real-time pacing outside of the sex scenes. Okay, like, you gotta think about it. Like, there's that time jump in Blue is the Warmest Color that jumps, like, 5 years to where they're, like, already fighting and breaking up. And there's all those scenes with her walking around with the kids, and then there's that scene where they're at the restaurant and she sticks her hand in her mouth. I mean, it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. The lead actress is one of the sexiest chicks ever, and she's amazing in that movie. She really is. There's a dance sequence in that movie. She's amazing in it. And then there's all these scenes with them eating spaghetti. But yeah, it's just a bunch of, all the symbolism's hilarious. What, her hair's blue, and it goes in the water. I mean, come on, guys. Nice cinematography, though, and nice acting. But yeah, after the first 45 minutes, that film goes to crap. The storytelling's terrible. And the sex scenes are all like, God, that first one that's like, it feels like 10 minutes. I'm sure it's not that long, but it just kills all that out of the movie. Like, there's this movie, The Spectacular, now that has such a better sex scene between Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley that feels way more realistic. They didn't cut the scene length. Yeah, they needed to cut things down. It wasn't even that it was a too long film at 3 hours. It was nonsense. The movie's about nothing. All of the messages are pretty much explained in the first 45 minutes, and then he loses the story about this gay girl and seeing things from her point of view and falling in love with this other girl. He loses that and actually makes homosexuality and lesbians look crazy. It's actually a really bad representation. I don't think that's the chick I'm talking about. I think that's the chick that was in Spectre with James Bond. I'm talking about the main girl. I'm pretty sure the main girl wasn't that girl. I think you're talking about the girl from Mission Impossible 4. She has, like, kind of the gap in her teeth. I'm talking about the main chick in the movie. She was amazing. There were bad sex scenes. 2016, I hated just because of that. What are some movies with great sex scenes? That's a good question, actually. Should make a video on that sometime, movies with good sex scenes. Because I think pulling off a good sex scene is a lot more difficult than people think it is. I will say the sex looks better on film than it does anywhere. People being naked and hooking up looks better in film. Just in my opinion. It just looks way better. It was a male view of lesbian sex. That's what it was. It was like a straight man getting off on his view of what lesbians are like. It was so screwed up. I mean, I can't take anything away from that movie except perversion and misguided artistry or misguided ideas. I mean, I really can't. That film was hard to watch for me, actually. I felt uncomfortable for the actresses in that movie. And I didn't really like Basic Instinct. Yeah, Basic Instinct has good sex scenes. There is Blade Runner 2049. That is a good sex scene in Blade Runner 2049. There's been Lost Highway has a terrific sex scene with Patricia Arquette. I mean, God, Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland, Julie Christie, where a lot of people think they're actually having sex on camera in that scene, is actually terrific. Yeah, my problem with sex scenes, they don't really ever add much to a movie. I've seen a lot of movies and a lot of shows, and sex scenes most of the time do not add that much. It's nice to know the characters have sex, but typically with most movies, I'm not saying all, you can usually set up the characters are going to have sex, and then you show it. Even Call Me By Your Name last year. Like the sex scenes, there's really not many sex scenes. It's just the character's about to have sex, or they got done having sex, or it's build up to it. But that's a way to pull off a lot of the times. I don't think sex actually adds much to a movie, in my opinion. I don't think it can add to the characters if it's done quickly and it gets the point. But yeah, most of the time. Oh yeah. Laura Dern in Twin Peaks season 3 has one of the best sex scenes ever, in the finale of that show. But yeah, Meet Joe Black. There's a lot of movies that have good sex scenes, but yeah, they're not one of my favorite things. I can't think of. In fact, I prefer scenes that are sexy that aren't sex scenes. Like, my favorite scene like that's probably Fast Times at Ridgemont High when Phoebe Cates gets out of the pool and shows her boobs to Brad, and it's his fantasy masturbating. That's a sexier scene to me than most sex scenes. Like, that's the thing about movies that are interesting, is that you can have sensuality. And you can have scenes be sexy without showing nudity or anything like that, because you can manipulate people with the camera and the editing and the sound and all that and the performances. So, yeah, I've seen that movie. We could say Bertolucci. We could say Paris, Last Tango in Paris. Let Me Get the Butter. Those are some good sex scenes. The Marlon Brando butter sequence. The infamous butter sequence. Would it work in terms of a coming-of-age story? I've seen movies with sex scenes that have not... yeah, that's what I was talking about with Spectacular Now. That can work in that context, yes. I do think sex works really well in coming-of-age stories. With adults, I don't think it works too well. Even if somebody cheats on the other person, you don't necessarily need to see that sex scene to feel anything about it. You can still feel the emotions without that. It just depends on the movie, though. See, I don't think Game of Thrones has a lot of good sex scenes. I think it does and doesn't. I think there's good sex scenes, and then I think there's horrible sex scenes that are pointless. Like, I think half the sex scenes, nude scenes on Game of Thrones have a point, and then the other half don't. And it's like, you don't really need this. Oh, dude, Last Tango... I'm not a big fan of it either, but it's still nice watching as a time capsule film. But yeah, if we're going down that rabbit hole... Oh, Sallow has my favorite sex scenes of all time. Pasolini. I love it. But let's get back to the box office, shall we? If they ever do Berserk as a TV series, should they start with the Black Swordsman arc or the Golden Age arc? You should start with the Black Swordsman arc because the narrative works better that way. It works better if you trick people into thinking that it's going to be one thing, and then the Golden Age arc. See, people think the Golden Age arc is just brilliant because of the great writing, and it really is. It's like watching Game of Thrones in a manga form. It's really great, but it's because of the Black Swordsman arc at the beginning that sets you up for this story being one thing, and then when you find out it's this whole other story in the Golden Saga, that's what makes it such a good narrative. Now, it would still be great if you started with the Golden Age. It would still be... in fact, it would probably make more sense as a television show in some ways. But I think finding out more about the lead character and all that stuff and finding out that information in kind of like that out-of-order way is actually part of the charm of what makes Berserk so good. I think if you kept it just as a straightforward story, it wouldn't be as compelling. Because then we're forced to go look back and reevaluate that, oh, this is the guy he is now because of this. And if you took that away... See, Caligula has terrible sex scenes. Oh my god. I disagree. I think the St. Matthew, the Gospel of St. Matthew is Pasolini's best film, actually. I think he made the best film about Christ ever. In my opinion. I think that's like definitely a masterpiece about Christ. In my opinion, that's my favorite. I don't actually think Sallow's that good. I actually had a conversation with my friend about this a few days ago. Sallow's not really that good. It just gets hyped up. And I bought the Criterion for like $35 back when, that new Criterion came out, not the original one. And yeah, Sallow, the commentary's so And it really, you're just it kind of meanders for a lot of it too. I was very disappointed. I've seen Sallow like 5 times, and I'm always disappointed in it. Beautifully shot, and it's got some good stuff in it. But I think Sallow's more its reputation than the movie itself. The movie itself really doesn't meet its reputation. I guess Refn could do Berserk. I don't really think anyone could do Berserk properly. I just don't think you can do it. I don't think it's set up to be a movie or a show. It's too weird. Yeah, I like the Lady Bird sex scene with Timothée Chalamet. I don't mind it. That one works kind of because it is a coming of age one, and they don't focus on nudity or anything. It's not pornographic. It's more about her emotions in that scene. That's the thing. A sex scene should be for what the characters are feeling and their emotions. It shouldn't be for the audience to go, man, these two people are hot. It should be more about like, hey, what does this scene represent for the movie? Why is it needs to have purpose, basically. If it has no purpose, then it shouldn't be in your movie. Like everything should have a purpose in a good movie. I liked Ghost in the Shell. I don't go why it flopped so bad. Poor marketing. Poor marketing, people not really knowing the property. I think a lot of people misjudged how many people in the States know what the hell Ghost in the Shell is. I don't think it's that popular outside of people that are into, like, movies or anime. And maybe they remember it in the 90s when it came out, but they don't remember it now. I think a lot of factors, that the trailers looked bad. There was nothing to really separate the movie from other films that did cyberpunk aesthetics. I think that hurt Blade Runner 2049. Making Blade Runner 2049, the trailers really screwed that movie. Because the trailers were all about the mystery. And even showing Deckard was a mistake in the trailers, because that's one of the best parts of the movie, is Deckard just showing up. And if you didn't know that was going to happen, the movie would be better, but it's in the trailer. They really didn't hook you to, like, you need to go see this movie because of this, because of Ryan Gosling's character. Okay, you didn't even know anything what was happening. They just relied on the Blade Runner brand name and, like, from the director of Arrival. They did a terrible job of showing you this is why you need to go. If they could have sold people more on his character finding out who he was, if they could have conveyed that more in the trailers, that film would have done better. But it didn't do as well because people didn't know what the hell the movie was. Even I didn't know what the hell the movie was in the trailers, and that didn't bother me, but that's not a good way to market a movie. It's not a good way to market a film where people are sitting there going, I don't know what this is. That's a guaranteed way to get people to not go see your movie. I disagree. I don't think Blade Runner's even slightly overrated. I know a lot of people say that, but I just think it's like a bullshit argument. I know Red Letter Media says it, and like other people, but I don't agree with that at all. Blade Runner is one of the greatest films ever made. Every argument I've ever heard for why Blade Runner isn't good, or why it's shallow, or why it doesn't work, is it just goes back to the problems of Ridley Scott, not really Blade Runner itself. It's just Ridley Scott issues. It's like, yeah, that's a problem that Ridley Scott has in every single one of his movies, because he's a really flawed filmmaker, storyteller. But the script and the actors and the production value in that movie are like impeccable, you know. I mean, the best piece of writing wasn't even the writer, and it was Rutger Hauer improvising the Tears in Rain speech. So it's just kind of ridiculous, you know. Like, it's one of those movies where everyone working on it was so talented that they all came together to make something truly great. I think people could watch a long movie. I disagree with that. I think that the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Christopher Nolan movies. I mean, Dark Knight's 2.5 hours. Dark Knight Rises is 3 hours. All of the Hobbit films, all the Harry Potter films are long movies for the most part. So I'm not totally sure about that. Yeah, I find Blade Runner to be a good movie to fall asleep to. Yeah, I never really get when people talk about it being boring. It's slow. I don't really think it's boring. But, you know, if people feel that way, that's fine. But I didn't, like, if that's boring, then so is every Stanley Kubrick film. Then so is Eyes Wide Shut, Barry Lyndon, The Shining. Because it's paced almost exactly like a Stanley Kubrick movie or a Tarkovsky film. It's paced like if you're watching Solaris or something, or Stalker, they're both 3 hours. So yeah, if that's slow and boring, then I guess, because really that's how I feel. Because when people really, that's weird that you think it's schmaltzy. I actually think it would be the opposite of schmaltzy. I actually think that whole sequence would be the exact opposite of what schmaltzy even means. Just because of how it's done, execution-wise, and the fact that it was improvised. I think if a screenwriter had written it, it would be schmaltzy, and if it was directed a certain way. But the fact that it all happens organically, or Rutger Hauer playing off the situation, I think makes it the not schmaltzy even at all. I'd agree with you if it was even made that way, that it was being sentimental. But it's really not. It's not sentimentality. It's humanity. It's humanism. It's that I value my life and these memories, and I want these memories to live on, even if it's just through you and me talking to you before I die. That's science fiction. That's at the heart of it, what science fiction is. That's the thing. I'm just saying, when people talk about Blade Runner being slow or boring, it's like that's the exact same thing Barry Lyndon in 2000. Yeah, but really, 2001's about something, okay? But do you need those 20-minute scenes where the ship's just floating? What's that about? What about the early scene with the pen? You know what I'm talking about, where it's about a 15-minute shot of a ship floating. That has no meaning. You can add meaning to it if you want. The Dawn of Man sequence is half meaning. The final sequence has meaning. The Hal stuff has meaning. There's probably 45 minutes of 2001 that is just imagery. It's just landscape. It's just ships floating slow. The pen sequence, that's a long sequence. A lot of those scenes are just special effects demo reel sequences. It's almost like Fantasia to show off the special effects. I like that stuff about 2001, but you could cut that stuff down. you could cut 2001 down by a half hour and it wouldn't affect that movie one iota. It really wouldn't. It's one of the reasons I liked Arthur C. Clarke's book, is that it actually went into more detail. The stuff on the moon sucks for me in 2001. I hate that, like, conversation they all have before they go to the monolith on the moon. It's like, there's no point in it. Really, I already get the information. I don't need to see them talk about this stuff. I understand what's going on visually. And it's just these dull, dry scenes. I agree it's all about atmosphere, so is Blade Runner. So there's a lot of science fiction films like that. But atmosphere doesn't change 2.5-hour movie pacing-wise. 2001 is still a really long movie that has a lot of scenes of just the ships floating. That the idea, the symbolic nature of the shots wears out after a little while. The George movie Clooney Solaris. No. The old movie Solaris from 1972. See, I disagree. I don't even think 2001's like the top 3 to 5 science fiction films. That's really weird. Whenever I hear people say that, I'm like, how many science fiction films have you seen? Because I think there's a lot better science fiction films than that. I actually think Solaris is a much better movie than 2001: A Space Odyssey, and much more interesting. I'd also say, I find Blade Runner more, but the HAL segment in 2001 is about as good as anything ever. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think there's a lot of sci-fi films that do. In fact, I probably even like Metropolis more than I like things that do. I think Fritz Lang did a lot of stuff before other people even did it, but that's a problem. 2001 feels like Fantasia. It feels like a movie, because Fantasia got re-released in the late 60s. It feels like a movie to me that a lot of people went and saw on acid, and they loved it, and a lot of young filmmakers saw and were blown away. But if you watch it now, it's a great movie, but it's not Kubrick's best film, and I think there's a lot of science fiction films that do what it does better, because most of the things that it does are, especially if you're talking literary, but let's not go to that place, because that's just not fair to science fiction. Most of the science fiction in Blade Runner doesn't make sense. Well, yeah, Craig is the pinnacle of... I don't know. It may not make sense to you. It makes sense to me. I'm not confused by Blade Runner. Now, the sequel kind of ruins a lot of the stuff that I think was interesting. I won't disagree with that. I think the sequel does hurt a lot of that movie. In particular, one element of the sequel I think really hurts the original Blade Runner. But most of the stuff in Blade Runner that's left for interpretation or doesn't make sense, I think just makes the movie better. I think the mysteries make the movie even better, not worse. Just like 2001, everything about it that you can interpret from it makes the movie better. I mean, honestly, the Space Baby makes sense, but it's still kind of stupid, and everyone's been trying to do the Space Baby since the Space Baby. I mean, that's all that happens with Tetsuo at the end of Akira. He becomes the Space Baby and then creates his own universe. And Fahrenheit 451's a great book. I wasn't too big on the... who made that movie? Wasn't Truffaut made that? I wasn't a big fan of the film. Although they're making a new movie on HBO of Fahrenheit 451 with Michael Shannon in it, which is an amazing idea. And, like, Michael B. Jordan. I'd rather watch the first 3/4 of the movie Sunshine than 2001. Man, the first 3/4 of Sunshine are amazing. Sunshine's such a great movie until the final act. Then the final act just almost ruins the entire movie. It's like such a good movie, and then at the end you're like, no! Don't do that! Yeah, it just gets, I don't know. I mean, science fiction is one of those genres where I think people they like to interpret their version of what they think science fiction should be, I guess. People are intelligent enough to make replicants, but not enough to tell them apart efficiently from humans. Yeah, but that's the thing. Blade Runner, people are intelligent enough to make replicants, but not enough to tell them apart efficiently from humans. Yeah, but that goes into part of the themes of the movie, though. It's all subtextual stuff. Like, it's the final cut of Blade Runner is the one worth watching. Like, because the whole idea is, like, can you tell if you're a human? Because the human beings getting lost in the corporate world, feeling like they're a machine themselves, like you're a replicant. Because the idea is, like, there's no difference between a replicant and a human being. In particular, at the point of the story we're at with Deckard, they're starting to get the replicants so advanced that they're not human, and that was kind of Tyrell's goal. Tyrell thinks of himself as God, creating something superior to man, Superman, and then a fallen angel, you know, Roy Batty, his fallen angel, comes to kill God and confront God about his life. Well, the final cut's basically the director's cut with the audio fixed and some better stuff. But yeah, I would say, yeah, the final cut. I pretend that the late 4th of Sunshine is just a group of hallucinations due to isolation. Blade Runner is about what it means to be a sentient being. Well, it's what great stuff. It should be what it means to be human. It's all about what it is to be human, what that even means, and our own perceptions of the limitations of humanity too. You know, it's so many things, but you know, these big giant buildings that that we worship, and the world going dirty and pollution. I mean, it's really what makes it so good too, besides the aesthetics of Blade Runner, because that's just one thing that stands out definitely. Because who frames a movie as good? You know, Ridley Scott's as good as anyone at shooting, but it's so much the way they use technology in that movie so smart. Because a lot of sci-fi films have stuff that feels a little dated. Blade Runner has some stuff like that, but a lot of the stuff they did was pretty cool. Like the cars don't feel too fantastical. The equipment they use, the way people dress. You know, they didn't really do something that futuristic in Blade Runner. They made it feel close enough to what the future could be like. I think they should have I don't know if it should have been a reboot. I think it should have been a sequel reboot, where it follows Kay's character after the events of the original Blade Runner, but then none of the movie ties into the original Blade Runner. I still think it could have been a sequel, just a sequel in the sense that it's a different story now in that same universe. Not let's just start Blade Runner over again. Because really, they didn't need to bring Deckard back. Like, all that stuff that they did, I would prefer that movie if it was just Ryan Gosling's character and his story. If it was a 2-hour movie about him, I think it would be great. Well, like I said, he didn't have to do a reboot. He could have just done a sequel that was its own movie. It didn't need to be a reboot. It could have been a sequel that was its own thing. Like, Force Awakens, I think, would be a much better movie if it was just a sequel that did its own thing and wasn't a sequel that had the old characters from Star Wars in it. I think that hurts the movie. If it just followed Rey, Finn, and Poe and their adventure, like, let's say 60 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, like, everyone's dead, that would be better. And I feel the same way. Yeah, I agree. I think Kay's story and Gosling's performance was the highlight of the movie. I thought all the stuff with Deckard and all that didn't work. And now I'm finding out a lot of that was Ridley Scott's ideas. He's come out and said a lot of that stuff that I didn't like. And those are things I don't like about Ridley Scott. It's almost like there was this 90-minute, 2-hour film in there that was about Ryan Gosling's character finding out that his robot girlfriend, his hologram girlfriend, wasn't real. And it's a really good sci-fi movie that's got some really nice atmosphere and action. And his performance, like I said, is amazing. But unfortunately, it has that whole thing with the daughter and the baby and Rachel and all that. And yeah, I don't like any of that stuff, like, at all. I think that stuff all bombs really bad. Even the final fight isn't even really kind of perfectly done. It's beautifully shot. But yeah, I much prefer... I think the first 2 acts of that movie are, like, perfect. Hey, Pat, was it just me or was Blade Runner 2049 the antithesis to Ghost in the Shell and Almost... yeah, I guess so. You could say that. The advance the technology and the population, LA had Asian language spoken in the background, for example, in the second film. Yeah, you can expand the world. There's some stuff I liked. It should, like when Gosling's flying his car and you see less cars flying in the sky. That's a cool way to do a sequel. We go, okay, this is a sequel to Blade Runner, but things have changed. The technology's a little bit better. Or now we know replicants are all Blade Runners, like his character's a Blade Runner. Those are cool sequel things. Those are really cool little sequel things. It's a way to change the universe a little bit without totally changing it. But then when you bring in all that stuff from the first film, it connects it so much to the original Blade Runner. That's my problem. It then relies on the original Blade Runner, which is what Force Awakens and Last Jedi do. That's my problem when people argue that to watch these new movies, you need to look at them as their own things as opposed to the original films or the prequels. Or you need to watch them as their own movies. Like even how Mark Hamill talks about it, I'm playing a new character for these movies. The problem is I can't do that because the only reason I'm even at all invested in these new Star Wars films are because of the old characters. They didn't spend any time establishing or developing Finn, Poe, or Rey, so the only reason I'm even watching was to see... I only went to go see Last Jedi because of Luke Skywalker. I only went to go see Force Awakens because of Han Solo, Leia, and Luke. You know, that's the only reason I went to go see those movies. That was the big reason. Was like, oh, what are they going to do with these characters? And since they screwed that up, you don't have anything else to cling on to. I mean, if we just had to rely on Rey, Finn, and Poe and the old cast weren't in these movies, could you imagine the disaster this would have been? Because they're terrible characters. Rey's a horrible character. If Rey was a guy, if Rey wasn't a woman, nobody would defend her. She's only defended by the fact she's a woman. People feel the need to defend her because she's female. If she was a male character and that poorly written, we'd all be talking about... It'd just be like any other generic franchise like The Maze Runner that gets mixed reviews. Or any of those films that come out every year, those YA book movies that try to get big and they're generic. That's how people would talk about these Star Wars movies. But instead... I do like that Kay thought he was special and thought he was chosen, and then in the end finds out he's not. That's the best part of the movie. Kay's story, you're totally right. The best part of the movie, the shocking part, is that it wasn't seeing Deckard again. It wasn't all the stuff that went back to the old film. It was all the stuff Villeneuve did that was new. It was honestly one of Ryan Gosling's best performances. I think it was his best performance since Half Nelson. I think it was the best casting choice that someone's made with him since Half Nelson. He's terrific in 2049. And the pacing of those scenes, I don't mind the long first act because it really sets you up for those reveals, and they're done visually. I love that the film reveals stuff visually. And then they, yeah, I think, but here's the thing about science fiction is that it's still alive in a lot of ways, like on television. Like the first few seasons of Black Mirror, the first 2 seasons are really good. We had Battlestar Galactica for a little while before it went to crap. But there's a lot of stuff though in television. I think TV's gonna even Westworld. You know, it's not great sci-fi, but I enjoy it more than a lot of sci-fi movies right now. I think science fiction's gonna be better explored on television, with time, in my opinion. I think it depends on how Han Solo movies received. Alien was good, but they kept it simple. Yeah, Alien is so funny that it was going to be... What was the name of that? Star Beast. And it was going to be a B movie like Jaws. And then Walter Hill came in and rewrote a lot of the screenplay, the dialogue mainly. And Ridley Scott just happened to be Ridley Scott coming off The Duelist. And then it kind of was one of those happy accidents. It kind of organically became a great movie. Like Jaws, they never planned for it to be the suspenseful, what you don't see is what makes it so scary, but that's kind of what's beautiful. I think the first 2 seasons of Battlestar Galactica are amazing. The first season in particular is one of the best seasons of a Star Trek show ever. The first season of Battlestar Galactica is better than most Star Trek shows. It's like they took a lot of Deep Space Nine, and they took some stuff from TNG, and then some of the heart of the original, and mixed it all together, and then they took stuff from mech anime. Like, that first season of Battlestar has very few problems with it. It's just as the show goes on, unfortunately. But that first season, how they handled the Cylons was perfect. Where they had so much mystery with the Cylons and the God stuff and religion and what it is to be alive. They did that stuff perfect in the first season of Battlestar. They just screwed it up as things went along, unfortunately. But man, I was just rewatching that pilot episode to Battlestar, the miniseries. When Gaius Baltar first is there and finds out what's going on. That stuff's so intense. Oh my god. Like, it's so intense. And it feels like Macross or something meets, like, Star Trek. It's really unique, and the special effects are great, the music. Apollo should be this cliche pilot. All the characters should be cliches, and they're not. Like Starbuck should be a total cliche. Or Apollo, but they're really likable characters. That was a good show. That was a really good show at first. Rey had potential, but was sabotaged by lazy writing. That's the thing. She's such a lazily written character. There's nothing to her. Obvious later on when they were struggling to make... Oh, I agree. No, Battlestar falls apart completely. I totally agree. No question. It's pretty good for about seasons 2 and the beginning of season 3. In season 3, when they're first on that planet and they do the escape, that's pretty good television. And that could almost be the ending of the show. They could have, but unfortunately, yeah. It's about some way halfway into Season 3, Battlestar goes to crap. Completely. And then Season 4 is just bad, in my opinion. But that first season, man, it's still worth watching. Kind of like the first season of Lost. Nowadays, Lost is easy to make fun of. But if you go back and watch the first season, there's some good episodes. There's some really good episodes with John Locke and Terry O'Quinn, the actor. He has at least 2 episodes, Walkabout and The Mosquito, I think, or something, that are really good television. They're good TV episodes. You know, it's just before everything went to crap and the hatch and all that. But the first season of Lost, when they look down the hatch, that's a good ending. That's a perfect way to end that first season. It's just they didn't know what to do after. There's a lot of TV shows like that. Like, they have a great first season. You could even say that about Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks had the great first season, and then the second season had a lot of disappointing episodes. Now, it came back with the third season. But, a lot of those high-concept shows only really work for about 1 season. I don't know why. I guess you have the idea more than you do thinking about it long term. It gets tough. Have you noticed that all for Kathleen Kennedy claims of making Star Wars more diverse, there's a lack of any prominent alien lead? There's a lack of any kind of leads that are a certain way. She talks about that, but really, she won't have a black man kiss a white girl. The leads are still all pretty much white. Like, Jen Russo's a white chick. Rey's a white chick. All of the directors for all of the movies have been white men. Ron Howard's white. JJ's white. The Phil Lord and Chris Miller were white. Gareth Edwards is a white guy. Rian Johnson's a white guy. I mean, everyone they've hired's been white guys making the movies. And outside of Finn, there's no new black cast members, and he gets little to do. And the gay character thing, they're only kind of doing it. They're only hinting at it. That's why I love when they claim to be progressive, and then they it's like these little baby steps. They're like, we're going to be progressive. It's like, you're really not being that progressive in these movies. If you think progressive is that all the bad people are white, and that you have Antonio, and then you have Benicio del Toro show up as a Latino character, that doesn't make your movie progressive. That's not. In fact, it's almost pandering because they think that means anything. Like, let's cast Rose. Yes, Colin Trevorrow. She never actually commits to what she preaches. Why has there not been a female director on a Star Wars movie? Why has there not been a black director on a Star Wars movie? Why has there not been a black lead in a Star Wars movie? Why couldn't Jen Russo be black? I'm just throwing out there, by their logic. Oh, season 1 of Lost is great. Totally agree. Great acting. Terry O'Quinn, man, he's so good in that. He's so good in that. He really makes that show in that first... And the guy who plays Sawyer, Josh Holloway, who should have been Gambit. He should have been Gambit, damn it. That's the thing. Josh Holloway got screwed not getting the part of Gambit years ago. Great actor, was underused. And that's the thing. Finn's underused. He could have been a great black... He could have been the lead. Why wasn't the black guy the lead of the new Star Wars films? Why wasn't he the Jedi? Why is it a white girl? It's progressive because it's a white girl? That's really happened a lot in movies, white girls being hero. There really isn't actually, if we're being truthful here, there isn't actually a lot of black... Or Poe, you're totally right. Why wasn't Poe the lead character? Poe would have been a terrific lead character. And I know originally J.J. Abrams wanted to cast Fassbender. But yeah, watch Force Awakens. Oscar Isaac. He's the best actor out of the 3 new leads. It's not even really close. Oscar Isaac acts circles around Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. He acts circles around them. It's like, yeah, why isn't this guy the lead character? We haven't had this before. He's not a white guy. That'd be pretty cool. It's still a white girl and her white boyfriend. Who's the most popular character in the new Star Wars films for most fans and critics? It's Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren's pretty much the most popular character, and it's a white guy. It's the whitest guy ever, Adam Driver. So really, they've made no progress. Even the people that the writers are interested in writing for, like Rian Johnson, are Kylo Ren. That's who they clearly care about, is Kylo and Rey and those characters. They really don't seem to care about Finn and Poe. And Rian Johnson coming up with Rose and all that. Oh my god. Taylor Kitsch was a good Gambit. It was just in a bad movie. But Taylor Kitsch is like, he's like the bad luck charm. Everything he's been involved with outside of Friday Night Lights has almost been a disaster, like that in Lone Survivor. I love him. Riggs and Friday Night Lights, one of my favorite shows of all time. Great show. But yeah, Taylor Kitsch, man, he just can't catch a break. He's just like poison. He is the cancer to your movie if you cast him. Yeah, I really... Okay, let's get back to the box office a little bit and what I was trying to get at with some of the Star Wars stuff, because I think we've been going on over an hour here, and it's... Yeah. Okay, so let's get to this Star Wars thing about predictions, what I was getting at with Last Jedi, because it's a really important conversation to have. So the film's at 1.2 billion. It's at 1,264,000,000. Let's say 265. Let's just round off there. And it's right under 600 million worldwide. So I think this puts it ahead of Beauty and the Beast. Yes. So by 1 million, it passed Beauty and the Beast, okay? And then it's a little bit ahead of Fate and the Furious. But Star Wars is about to be done. It's open in all of its international markets, and its domestic run is about to wrap up. So 1.3 billion is pretty much it. There is no chance this will make 1.45. So this is... You can't even compare this to Age of Ultron anymore because of international grosses. Because... No, I know what a lot of people are going to say. Yeah, but look at the domestic total of Last Jedi. That's crazy. It's going to make 600 million. That's true. That's a great point. And Disney cares more about the domestic total than the international because they make more off the domestic total. They got to keep 65% of the ticket revenue from this movie. So Disney's not hurting at all because of this. Adam Driver is one of the few actors in these new Star Wars movies with any kind of charisma. He's one of the only ones that's, like, trying. He has no character. Kylo's a terrible character, but I know... You could tell Adam Driver's trying. He's trying to do something with that role, and he just can't because there's nothing there. The thing with Kylo is, like, there's an illusion of a character there, but there's actually nothing. We actually know very little about him and who he is. It's just... It's like there's certain things explained to us that might give the illusion... But he's actually not really a character. Hey, I'm busy. It's no big deal. I'm just doing something. But then 191 million on the opening weekend on Age of Ultron. And 1.4 billion worldwide. Now, the domestic total was 459 million. Now, compared to the first Avengers, that was a pretty big drop. I mean, we had a movie that made 623 million. But it was the international box office of the movie that was worth talking about. Age of Ultron did 946 million. It made pretty much like $100 million more than the other film internationally. So it made 1.4 billion. So it ended up overall making about 100 million less than the previous film. That's really not that bad of a drop, all things considered. Now, they didn't make as much profit off of this movie because of that domestic total and all that. But then let's go into Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3, on the other hand, had an international take of 800 million. Now, that was crazy. The Avengers effect boosted off, so it really just helped everyone. Then we got to Civil War, which did perform below the other films. And I do count this as an Avengers film, even if people don't want to count it as such. It has every main Marvel character in it, so yes. And honestly, Robert Downey Jr. had maybe more screen time than Chris Evans. So yeah, that one opened to 179 million, 1.1 billion, 408, 745. So this has happened before, but it feels like Infinity War might end up making like $2 billion, if not more. Going down the road. But I do think there's going to be a drop on Episode 9. I think this is a long-term effect. Let's not forget that Last Jedi cost $250 million plus $200 million marketing. Even with 60% revenue, it's not going to make that much money. It's still going to make $500 million in profit, I assume. It would have to, right? It would have to make $500 million. At least $450. It's still probably going to be the most profitable film of the year. I think it might be able to get it. It or something like Despicable Me 3 might have made more profit because it only cost $80 million and made $1 billion. I'm assuming Despicable Me 3 made most of the money. Is that most profitable film of the year, but I'm not sure. But why aren't we talking about Alien Covenant? Because it's not worth talking about. That's why. Because it's horrible. Thor 3 bet that trilogy had the highest third flick box office. That's what I'm saying. You can bounce back. What can they possibly do in Episode 9? That's a good question, man. It really is. Because they're going to have to kill Princess Leia off camera. They're going to have to kill Leia off camera. They're going to have to bring Luke back, which I don't think they were planning on doing totally. Because they don't have Leia anymore. And I feel like Abrams is going to come in and try to retcon what Johnson did and change things. I think he's going to change whose race parents were. I think he's going to reveal stuff about Snoke. And I think Abrams is going to, like, make a movie that's totally different again. These are going to be such disjointed films, all three of them together. They're going to feel like three completely different movies, and it's going to be awkward to watch them. It's like JJ said, hey, I don't know where this is going, bye. And Rich said, oh, yeah, hold my beer. Rian Johnson's even come out and said there was no discussions about connecting any of these things. So he was legit working on a screenplay, not thinking about how he was going to connect these things totally from Force Awakens. That's insane. That's insane. It's like, dude, what the hell? What were they thinking? Like, what were they thinking with that? That's ridiculous. Why would you not think, like... I'm working on my Snoke video, why Snoke doesn't work videos coming out, and one thing I talk about with that is that it's almost like Rian Johnson didn't like Snoke in the same way a lot of us didn't like Snoke in The Force Awakens. We thought he was shoehorned in there, and he thought he just had to get rid of him, and that would be a good thing, and people would like that because they all hate Snoke. And it backfired miserably because that makes Snoke even more pointless and uninteresting and boring in Force Awakens. The fact that he really didn't have anything going on. If he had even anything slightly going on, like, Snoke is one of the most boring villains. He's a generic Marvel villain. He's like the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, or any of them. He's one of those generic comic book movie villains. He's just a cartoon character who comes in to die because of his arrogance. They don't do anything unique with him. It's like, how embarrassing. Oh my god. Like, it is. It's embarrassing. Like, Snoke is one of the most embarrassing villains in any movie franchise ever. He's one of the most poorly thought out, poorly used, just waste of time. He's a waste of time. The movies do not benefit from Snoke. The movies would be better without Snoke. If Snoke wasn't in Force Awakens, or in this movie, they would be better films. There would be more things to write about and talk about, and it's embarrassing. Hey, Pat, would The Last Jedi have been any worse if Zack Snyder film? It would have been as bad, if not worse, because Batman v Superman is as bad as Last Jedi, if not worse. The movie that it reminds... Honestly, Last Jedi reminds me of Batman v Superman. They have a lot of the same problems. Except critics were able to give bad reviews to Batman v Superman, while Last Jedi critics just gave it a pass. But it's a lot of the same issues when it comes to editing and transitions and character motivations and dialogue and pacing... And the director having this ambition that they can't reach, that's out of their grasp. There's a lot of those things. Snoke's dialogue in the throne. That's the thing. Even Snoke's dialogue, people praise the throne room sequence. Why? It's literally just the scene from Return of the Jedi done worse. Snoke is just being the Emperor in that moment, except less interesting, not as good, and it's the same. He even dies like the same way. It's the same scene. Rey tells him, oh, you're too confident, and then his confidence gets him killed by his second-in-command. Like, while he's ranting about, like, and laughing all evil. It's the same death scene. Rian Johnson literally just ripped off Return of the Jedi in that moment. There's nothing different about it. It's the exact same thing. It's just little details are different. And it's like, what does Snoke matter then? I mean, oh my god, he has the power to connect their minds and manipulate everything to get them here so he can find out where Luke's at. And he's all-seeing, all-knowing, and he can't see a lightsaber beside him slowly turning on. Why can't he see that? It's just this... It's not like the Emperor or Darth Vader picked him up and threw him over. That's another person walking up to him and picking him up and then being like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And throwing him over. This is a lightsaber that's being moved beside him. Okay, how is he not aware of it happening? Snoke is shown to be more powerful than the Emperor. Okay, that's another thing. The Emperor was very powerful. Snoke is being shown to be like on a whole other level that we haven't even seen before. All of the new Star Wars powers, Leia's power, Luke's power, Kylo and Rey are doing things we've never seen before. All the characters have super powers. So if they're all going to be superheroes like this, then Snoke can't just die that way because it's got to be earned. It's got to be earned how he dies. You got to be like, oh, wow, they outsmarted him. Kylo didn't outsmart Snoke. Snoke just became stupid for the convenience of the plot. For the convenience of what Rian Johnson wanted to execute. I mean, if Rian Johnson could try to explain that any way he wanted all these things, well, in the original trilogy, they didn't set up the Force powers or all that. Yeah, but the stuff they did wasn't stupid. The Emperor using electricity out of his hands to hurt Luke looks awesome. Force ghosts look awesome, Rian Johnson. You don't seem to get that. It's cool factor. Force ghosts look awesome. They serve the plot. Leia flying in space is not cool looking. It doesn't really even serve your plot that much. It doesn't really add that much. Luke force projecting just makes an awesome death scene less impactful because he's not actually there. It doesn't add anything new. It's not more exciting because of that. And I know, oh, he was just trying to mess with Kylo and be the former version he wanted before. That's just, it's not that the original trilogy had to explain those things, it's how they executed those things. How they executed the new Force powers, how they subtly introduced them, how they didn't overuse them. You go too big with them, Ryan. He goes, they never set up anything in the original trilogy. No, but they used them very well. Like I said, the Force lightning really made sense with the Emperor's character, and it works, and it's not over the top. Everything you did is so over the top, it makes the Force just stupid. It's what George Lucas did in the prequels. It's Anakin and Obi-Wan jumping 50 feet, 60 feet in the air, lightsaber fighting each other and swinging their lightsabers around. It's Darth Maul doing backflips. It's, the Force can just be whatever. Everyone can fight with the lights. It just loses all of its impact. There's no impact to it anymore. I mean, I don't know how he didn't even... I don't know how they don't see that with these new movies. Even JJ, who just gave Rey all of these powers. Batman v Superman is actually watchable and tries to do well. See, I guess... it's watchable, but only in, like, the way that you're laughing during the Batman killing scenes, or you're laughing during any of the, like, when Superman's standing there and people behind him are burning. I don't think he gave it his A game. I disagree with that. I really don't. I think Snyder, I think directing-wise he did. If I don't think that script and that Chris Terrio script and what he worked on was his A game at all. I really don't think... That's the thing, consistency. The power levels aren't consistent. The rules aren't consistent. Rian Johnson thinks because the original trilogy did this, he can do it. But he ignores the context of this being a sequel series. So everything you do is kind of a new thing. And it's like, well, yeah, but they didn't explain Force Ghosts in the original trilogy. It's like, they didn't have to. It was just kind of part of that world and it made sense. Leia flying in space doesn't make as much sense. I don't know why it doesn't make as much sense. It shouldn't be that different, but it is. It's just too stupid. It's just too over the top. It's how far you push those things. It's like, now we live in a world where no Jedi character can get shot out into space. Because if they do, they can just fly back to the ship. That's really weird. That's really weird and stupid. Like, that's not cool. It's cool to think that when a Jedi dies, they come back as a ghost and talk to former Jedi. It's cool to think that the Emperor has electricity come out of his hands and he can, like, electrocute you. It's not cool to think that Jedi blow up and then they can freeze in space with no oxygen or anything like that, and they can freeze, and then they can, like, fly back. Like, that moment, it was almost like she was almost a Green Lantern or something, but they didn't have the force field around her. I don't remember seeing the force field. So you're not saying the Force powers are out of the realm of possibility, just kind of It's not even that, they're just silly. It's just silly. Like, I don't mind him introducing new Force powers. I think it's awesome when Kylo Ren stops the blaster in Force Awakens midair. That's a cool scene, because it looks cool and it's not stupid. Like, the execution of it's cool. Poe shoots the gun at him and Kylo stops the blast. It's not that over the top. Seeing Leia fly in space like that as the thing goes down, it just looks weird. It's a weird idea for a scene. It's a weird way to show Leia's power there. It's a weird way to put her in a coma for the whole movie to where she's not in it. It's so weird. It's such a weird choice. Like, it doesn't make any sense. All it seems to be there for is to set up that Leia was the most powerful Jedi this whole time. But now that Carrie Fisher's dead, they're not going to be able to follow that up in Episode 9. So it feels pointless. It's just some random scene now. I mean, it really does. It feels completely random. It doesn't... Like, at least the Force Ghost thing, when Obi-Wan starts talking to Luke in New Hope and then he blows up the Death Star, then Obi-Wan's a Force Ghost in Empire, and then we see the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. Rian Johnson and the producers introduced Leia with these new powers, and they're not going to be able to follow up on them because of the death of Carrie Fisher. How idiotic... Why didn't they even think of this stuff? Like, oh, what if somebody happens to one of these older actors? We probably shouldn't put so much on Leia, just in case. Like, really, that's a practical thing you should think, if we're being honest here. And it's just like, what were you thinking? This is horrible. No, they kill Akbar in this cold way, and then Leia comes back. I mean, it's such a bad moment in so many ways. Force Ghost makes sense because it's a spiritual thing, but Leia not dying in space doesn't make sense because it contradicts real life. Well, Star Wars has always had explosions in space, though, so that's never really mattered. But like I said, it's how far you take it. A lightsaber is not very realistic, but it's realistic enough for me to buy it. I can buy the physical nature of it. Leia flying in space like that just makes it stupid. It just makes a stupid fantasy. It's just at that point, it's a complete fantasy. It's at this point completely like, I mean, God, that was stupid to me. People underestimate Chris Pine's, Chris Pine is the only reason Wonder Woman works at all. Chris Pine is the secret weapon of that movie. It's not Gal Gadot. It's not Patty Jenkins' direction. There's a lot of quick-cutting, bad action scenes. The movie's way overpraised for its direction. The only reason it works is because Chris Pine and her have chemistry, and Chris Pine elevates it, playing the Marion role from Raiders of the Lost Ark, basically. The sad thing is they make Leia as much a Mary Sue as Rey. That's the thing, there's no consequences. Leia gets blown out the window, oh my god, she's dead. No, she flies back. Oh. Okay, oh my god, Luke dies at the end. Well, yes and no, he does die, but he gets to die on a rock all happy while he looks at the twin suns. Oh. Okay. Oh my god, Finn's gonna kill himself and die. Oh wait, no, Rose saves him. Oh. Okay. Oh my god, Laura Dern's character that we don't know and have no emotional attachment to, and she just gets introduced in this movie, dies. It's almost like Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. We can't kill a character that people actually care about that's been established. We have to introduce a new character just to kill him off. Yay! But wouldn't that have been a good moment for Leia or Akbar? No. We need it to be purple-haired hold the door. Okay. Oh, what about Snoke? Oh, let's kill him off. Yeah, let's kill off the main bad guy. Now the evil Kylo Ren and Hux are running the galaxy. They sure are intimidating. They're scary characters. It's not like everyone just makes fun of them. Even their own men seem to not respect them. It's the lack of the plasma shield on the airlock small detail Ryan forgot, like we don't know. That's the thing, wasn't there a shield on every part of the ship? And then the fighter was able to just fly in there and blow it up? Where was the shields? The shields were the only reason they weren't able to blow up the ship to begin with, right? Wasn't that the whole thing, that the shields were up so they weren't able to penetrate them? How the hell did they get through the shields to do that? They just magically didn't work in that moment when they blow up the bridge? It's like, how did that happen? I thought they had shields. Like, what? You could have done Leia's being so strong so many different ways, too. Like, you could have had, they get attacked and Leia moves stuff around to block a wall. She protects Akbar. She uses her force. Like the scene where she kind of comes and fights Poe. That one works. That feels okay. It's her flying in space and basically being dead. And I guess coming back to life? I don't really totally know what she was doing in that scene. She'd have to be dead, wouldn't she? She'd have to be dead in that moment and then come back to life. Even in the video games, Starkiller needed to have all the body fitted into cybernetics after being blown into space. That's the thing. I don't get so much of this. Like, at the end of the last movie, we see the Starkiller base get blown up, and the rebels fly off, celebrating their victory, and Rey goes back to hug Leia, and then goes to find Luke. And then this movie starts, and Leia and the Resistance are in the space battle, and they're, like, running from the First Order. When did this happen? Did this happen right after the ending of Force Awakens? Did this happen immediately after the sequence? The timeline doesn't match up. How did we go from Rey hugging Leia to that? Because when we go to Rey, she's handing Luke the lightsaber. So are they out of order? Are we seeing the Rey-Luke events out of sequence with the events of the stuff going on with the Resistance? Because then Finn wakes up. How long was Finn asleep when he got cut? Was it like 12 hours? Or was it like an hour? Or was it a couple days? We never get any sense of how long the time's passed or how many hours it's been, because having Rey hand Luke the lightsaber is confusing in that regard. It's like, okay, so is this timeline, because it takes place after the opening. So you're like, so what? Is this taking place before the events and then they match up? Which doesn't bother me. I guess that's what Game of Thrones does. But I wish Rian Johnson would have used some dialogue to explain that a little bit better. Like, hey, these events are taking place here. In fact, it would have been a clever way to structure the movie in a kind of non-linear way, where all the character storylines match up in different times. That actually might have worked better, but it doesn't feel that way when you're watching the movie. When you're watching the movie, it comes across as like everything's happening at the same time. Like everything that's going on with Rey and Luke, because Rey's talking to Kylo, it feels like when she's talking to Kylo, that's all happening simultaneously with the events of what's going on with the First Order. And them chasing down the Resistance. So I don't know. I'm so confused by it. Like, I'm confused how the First Order's chasing the Resistance. I'm confused how the Resistance has no military anymore. I guess blowing up the Star Killer meant nothing. I guess that was a nothing mission. I mean, it felt like at the end of Force Awakens they won, and it was a big victory for them. But I guess not. I guess they had no military left. There's nobody left fighting at the beginning of this movie, like after the bombers die, and that's like, okay. I just wish that stuff was explained a little bit better. I'd like to know what the hell was going on, like how the First Order got so... At least like with The Empire Strikes Back, it was 2 years. We had 2 years in between New Hope and Empire. So it made a lot of sense. The Empire has been killing off the rebels for a while, for 2 years, and there's been a fight going on. Luke's been training, they're hiding out on Hoth, and then the Empire shows up and things are bad because it's been a while. The fight's been going on a while. But this movie, it doesn't really... I don't know how the First Order has so much power. And I know it's because of they're getting the weapons and all that from the white people at Canto Bight, and they're making money off the war. But like, do Leia and them not have any money to buy weapons? Where's Snoke getting all this money? Does he have unlimited money? Where's Snoke and Kylo and them getting all the money? Does Leia not have any money? Did they not have money? Wouldn't they have unlimited money too? Can't they buy new weapons? Why is it the First Order the only ones who can buy weapons? I mean, it seems like the Resistance is using equipment that's, like, really old, and the First Order has a bunch of new stuff. Which, once again, that made sense with the Empire, because they were running the galaxy, and the Rebels had to use what they could. But Leia and them seem to be running the galaxy in Force Awakens. It seems to be like, so what the hell? Where's their new equipment? Where's the new stuff? They're still flying around like it's, like, the Death Star, the first Death Star. But... So, we all knew Last Jedi was going to drop considerably, as opposed to in comparison to the first movie, but, I don't think people realized by how much. A lot of the people I said that said, well, it's going to perform at Jurassic World level. And it still is, it seems to be about domestically, I'd say 630 to 650 is going to happen, but worldwide, no. This is below Jurassic World, this is below the Avengers movies, this is more Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now, before anyone says it, I know. Okay, this movie's still making a lot of money and profit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I know that Disney's still going to make hundreds of millions of dollars off this movie. I know that it's still making money. I know that when you're talking about films making $1 billion and trying to talk about them as a disappointment, it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid. But it's not. This is proven Batman v Superman Justice League, alright? Man of Steel opens, $700 million. Batman v Super opens, great opening weekend, $166 million. $873 million worldwide. Disappointment, but still it made money. Then you get to Justice League, $650 million worldwide. Now, to me, that was a direct result of Snyder's in the previous films. That had nothing to do with Wonder Woman. That was because people didn't like his vision, and they heard about it. Like, and Last Jedi has split so many people. And I know a lot of people have this idea that it's going to be like Empire, and they think in 10 years people are going to love this movie. I think the reputation of this movie is going to get worse. I actually think the opposite. I think all the people that like the movie are going to hate the movie 10 years from now when there's all these Plinkett reviews out for it and stuff like that. When we get that, I think that all of the things people are defending, they won't defend in years. I think it's the opposite. I think this will be considered a really bad movie in 10, 15 years by almost everyone. I don't think it'll be... That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. But I don't think it's one of those things... I don't think that happens as much anymore that 20 years later a film becomes a classic. That was a different time when that happened. Like the Blade Runner effect. That doesn't happen today that much. People pretty much have their minds made up. And they can read everything, and we see analysis videos. Like, people talk ad nauseum about these movies anymore. It just goes on and on and on. I've made several videos on this movie. You didn't do that back when Empire came out. There wasn't a bunch of people making videos on the internet about that movie. So I think the reputation of this film is just going to go down to where it's going to be embarrassing that so many critics gave it a glowing review and gave it like a 10 or a 9 and said it was a great movie. It honestly totally reminds me of the same critics who gave a pass to Phantom Menace. The reviews read almost exactly the same as the Phantom Menace reviews that were positive. If you go back to the old reviews for Phantom Menace from 1999, all the positive ones read so much like the Last Jedi reviews. And it's almost like, yeah, this is so weird. It's like they don't want to take that step and just say it's bad. Star Wars is one of those franchises. It's not totally critic-proof, but really the prequels all got better reviews than they deserved. Revenge of the Sith got pretty good reviews, and I still think that's a really, really, really bad movie. It's better in some ways, but it's still bad. and deserved bad reviews, but just because it was Star Wars and it wasn't as bad as the other two, critics gave it a pass. You know, that it's so weird with this franchise. Or like Force Awakens is clearly a flawed film that, like, at best, you could say is like a 7. At best, if you're being nice. And they all give it like 9s or 8.5. It's like, what? This is a 9? Like, J.J. Abrams, he makes that in Star Trek and they get rave. Even Star Trek Into Darkness got great reviews. That movie got really, really good reviews, and you watch it and you're like, what the hell is wrong with you people? What movie did you see? It's like an adequate action film for like 45 minutes, but still a bad movie fundamentally. It's nonsense. It's like some franchise. It's like they have no problem crapping all over Transformers, but they won't do the same for a Star Wars movie. It just won't happen. DC doesn't get this level pass when Suicide... No, they never do. Although Wonder Woman kind of got a pass. I don't think Wonder Woman deserved any of the reviews it got. Wonder Woman's a film that should have like 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has 93%. What do you think more is insulting entry in the series, Last Jedi or Alien Covenant? Well, Alien Covenant doesn't matter to me, so I'd say Last Jedi, only because by the time Alien Covenant came out, it was already pretty clear that Ridley Scott didn't know what the hell he was doing. There was at least somewhat of a hope that Last Jedi might redeem this new franchise and Rian Johnson had something up his sleeve, but he didn't. So, no. I'd say Last Jedi is much more impactful because this was kind of a make-or-break movie. This movie could have either really made this new stuff interesting or it could have made it worse, and it made it worse. Where Alien Covenant, it's like, well, that's just damage. That's just insult to injury. There was already... Prometheus already screwed... I mean, the Alien franchise already sucked, really, for being fair, for a while. There hadn't really been a good Alien movie in a long time. It was a franchise that was best left alone. Where Star Wars, you could have done interesting things with new Star Wars movies, and they just didn't. And nobody they've hired so far has been able to crack the code, really. Even the most interesting stuff people talk about is stuff that's almost just rehashes of things we've seen before. There's really not a... Even the things they try to claim new, like Flying Leia being new. That's the worst stuff about the movie, is the new stuff. All of the things that kind of work about the movie are just things that worked in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Okay, I liked all 3 Star Trek, but my captain is Picard, and I thought it was action, not sci-fi. Well, that's the big problem with the TNG movies, is that they try to be action films and they're awful. They just changed Picard's character for those movies. First Contact is one of the most overrated movies ever. It's one of the most overrated genre films. It's the most overrated Star Trek film. It's just, God, it's so stupid seeing Picard shoot a gun in a holodeck and be screaming at the top of his lungs. And, oh. And yeah, they're TV characters. Like, they never really transferred well to movies. They never really made them good movie characters like the original cast went well. The TNG characters always felt like they were in a big TV movie. Always. In all of those films. Generations is awful. Insurrection's the most boring Star Trek film. God, Nemesis has okay parts, but Jesus, even it's just a ripoff of Wrath of Khan. The TNG films are awful. I mean, it's baffling how bad they are. Like, you would think the TNG films at best would just be decent little fun romps. And they don't even work on that level. They're, like, boring. There's so many single episodes of TNG that are better than those movies. There's just single episodes that are far superior. Well, something like Wrath of Khan's like a great episode of a Star Trek, the original series. It's as good as a lot of the classic episodes. But TNG, none of the movies ever match any of the good episodes of TNG. No, they shouldn't be. They can be comedies, like the fourth movie, Voyage Home, when they come to the 80s and it's a comedy and it's them kind of... That movie really works because it's witty and fun and it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode in itself. Like the time travel element really works. And it's... Yeah, you could do that kind of stuff. You can make a fun Star Trek movie. But yeah, when you make it solely an action movie where it has to keep moving and all that, it's not really Star Trek anymore. Then it's just kind of like space opera, action adventure in space type of stuff. It's not really Star Trek anymore, which, you know, that's my issue. It's like, well, Star Trek should be Star Trek and other things should be what they are, you know. It's clear J.J. Abrams, I mean, J.J. Abrams even said he wasn't a fan of Star Trek and he had to go watch the original series again to get back into it, and he directs those movies like he doesn't really like Star Trek. And it's just kind of ridiculous. It's like, all right.
I like the Star Trek film with the Voyager probe. Alien 3 is an underrated film. I think it's a little underrated, but it's also not as good as the people who love it claim it is. That's the issue. Like, it's underrated, it's not as bad as its reputation, but it's also not as good as its good reputation. It's not the masterpiece film that people make it out to be just because of the awk stuff and the religious subtext. It's also not the awful film other people claim it is. I think it's a flawed, decent movie, but some people like to take that as it being a masterpiece because it's so depressing and all that. It's like, yeah, but it's still a lot of that stuff about that movie that doesn't work still doesn't work. The bald guys, a lot of the acting's really bad outside of they kill off the most interesting character in the first half hour. The most interesting character it gets killed off. That guy Tywin Lannister plays. He's terrific in that movie. Yeah, it's funny. I think Seven and Fight Club are both great. I think Seven, the game, and Fight Club are all awesome. I mean, I probably prefer Seven in a lot of ways, but yeah, I like Fight Club just as much, and I like the game just as much. I might even like the game more than Seven, except the ending's bad. But the first 2 acts of the game I actually like more than Seven. Exactly, it's not barf. It's not splooge. Alien 3 is... Yeah, it's just mediocre. Alien 3 at its best is just mediocre. It's not a bad movie, and it's not a great movie, but people try to lean it one way or the other. They're either too negative or too positive. And it really is just a movie that's mediocre, yeah. And it's kind of what your preferences are. Your personal taste is where you're going to feel, how you're going to feel about it, what you like and dislike about it. But the movie itself is no great achievement at all. Fight Club is way overrated. You know, I hear a lot of people say that, but I don't really get it. I used to think Fight Club was overrated too. Because when I first saw it as a teenager, I loved it, and then when I got in my 20s, I thought that it was overrated. But then I reevaluated it, and I think I think what the movie's actually saying and doing, I don't think that's how people interpret Fight Club. It's a satire. It's Gone Girl before Gone Girl. It's the male version. It's how your masculine self is bullcrap. It's about your insecurities, sexuality. It's male ego. And I don't have a problem with movies exploring toxic masculinity because I do think there is a side to masculinity that's toxic, just like I think there's a side to it that's heroic. But yeah, I thought when it first came out, I loved it, but I loved Tyler Durden. And then years later, I thought, I thought Fight Club doesn't work because it makes you like these characters too much. Fincher failed at the satire of it. Because you end up liking Tyler Durden too much. You end up relating to that stuff too much as a teenager. And then the message doesn't work. But now that I watch the movie, I rewatched Fight Club a few times, and really the message is perfectly rendered. It was just my teenage version not seeing it, and the older I get, Fight Club becomes a better movie. It's clear Tyler Durden's the bad guy. It's clear that you're not supposed to like him. Now when I watch the scenes where he's in the room with Fight Club, they're horror scenes. I used to watch those scenes and love them, like that we were all told one day we'd be movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. I used to think those are great. Now I watch those scenes and I see a guy who's manipulative. I see a guy that's evil. I see the worst part of people who get people to be tribalistic and follow them. And that's clearly what Fincher's doing in those scenes. It's just I misinterpreted Fight Club. I think a lot of people did. And I think it was so ahead of its time. A lot of the things about it, kind of like Team America, is a better movie now than it was back then. Fight Club's like a better movie now than it was in 1999. A lot of the stuff about it works better in a context of today's world. It almost was too... Because, yeah, everything... Now there's stuff I find about it. There's stuff with the dildos and the penis being cut and testicular cancer that you find out. It's maybe the best edited film of the 90s and early 2000s. I don't think there's much of an argument against it. It has the most complex, layered editing out of any film from that time. David Fincher makes that film impeccably well. Also, there's things about it that hold up so well. When he goes to the cancer group meetings at the beginning, that stuff's classic. I could watch a whole movie of just that. I don't even need the Fight Club stuff. Every time I even watch the movie, the first hour is my favorite part. Before Tyler and him really start getting together. I really, yeah, man, I think Fight Club holds up so well. Because even at the time, a lot of the criticisms people think about it, that's what critics said at the time. They said it was just kind of a generic thriller. Even Roger Ebert, he has a great review of that movie, where he says a lot of those criticisms. But I think with time, those criticisms haven't been valid. I think a lot of the issues I had with Fight Club, even watching it initially, I think watching it now, it's like, oh, this is what Fincher was doing. It's actually a really smart movie. Even even little things like when they're in the store and they're taking the barcodes off. There's a whole shelf of Alien 3 VHS tapes. That's really funny. The dialogue's great. I think that's still Edward Norton's best performance. And Edward Norton's an actor I love. I still think that's one of Brad Pitt's best performances. I still think Helena Bonham Carter's great in that movie. The set design to that movie's impeccable. It's got great set design, production design, everything. The cinematography, the editing. Yeah, it's just a well-made movie. And yeah, rewatching it every time, I'm like, yeah, this holds up. It's not. I don't love it as much as I did when I was young. I will say that. But it's still a great movie. It's still like kind of the Clockwork Orange of its time in a lot of ways. It's still a really good movie. That's why I said you should do different live streams. Though, is there much to talk about the box office this weekend? People say Blade Runner was ahead of its time. I'm going to watch 1 and 2 today. I saw Fight Club was way ahead of its time. I think Fight Club was a little ahead of its time. It feels very much like a film from 1999. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of films from that time, like Being John Malkovich and all that are great. But like, it does feel like a lot of the things it was saying don't really... They didn't all come together fully. It took a while for it to... yeah, I like pretty much every Nolan movie outside of Interstellar and Dark Knight Rises. I actually think Inception's a very good movie. I think Inception's really good. I like Batman Begins a lot. I think Prestige is a good movie. I like Insomnia. I like Memento, and I really like I like Dunkirk a lot. Actually, I think Dunkirk's an amazing movie. So yeah, I like Nolan. It's how you scale things. If you try to view him as he was talked about, it's crazy. But if you just view him as a filmmaker, he's a good filmmaker. He makes good movies. Not everyone has to make masterpieces, He just makes really good, entertaining movies. And I'm fine with that. I don't mind. I don't think he ever tries to do as much. Like, I'm much more insulted by a guy like Aronofsky or Paul Thomas Anderson when they get a pass than a Nolan. Because I think they fail in much bigger ways sometimes than he does. Even though Interstellar is a pretty epic failure, I can't deny that. Interstellar is a pretty epic failure all around. Yeah, you're not wrong. Maybe I should be doing 2 shows because I have not talked about the box office and all. It is getting ridiculous. But let's look at this Forbes article I was talking about just to get a point. Last Jedi sets new global record with 94% Friday to Friday box office plunge in China. Star Wars The Last Jedi has added another eye-popping records to its trophy case. It has just experienced the biggest Friday to Friday box office plunge that's ever seen recorded for a big budget wide release film. God. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But the film dropped $553,000 into the movie's coffers on Friday at 94% less than the tepid $9.4 million on opening day. It slogged through last Friday. So on its opening day on the Friday, it did $9.4 million, and then it had a 94% drop on the following Friday. Okay. For comparison, Jumanji Walk Into the Jungle scored an $11.4 million debut on Friday. Word of mouth. And Holdover, the X-File 3, a low-budget Chinese-language romantic comedy, scored $7.2 million. The latter film's China box office cum to date has just topped $250 million, while The Last Jedi will struggle to reach $40 million. The biggest Friday-to-Friday drop for a wide released 2,000-plus screens in North America was the 81.9% decline experienced by the Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez starring Turkey Geely back in 2003. Oh god, it's that movie where they take care of that retarded kid. It's a weird movie. The Last Jedi had come close to matching that domestic record, plummeting by 77% on its second Friday. Chinese theatrical exhibitors have dumped The Last Jedi from their screens in hasty fashion, and it just earned after it just earned $28 million for last weekend's opening 3-day frame. Less than a third of X-Files 3's $87 million haul. The mass removal from movie screens was done to clear the way for Jumanji and several new Chinese openers, including Forever Young, which took third place on Friday with $5.5 million. If Chinese moviegoers hadn't so thoroughly rejected Last Jedi, it probably would have held 20,000 or so showtimes on Friday and put a big dent in Jumanji's numbers. The Star Wars sequel, rapid disappearance from Hollywood's biggest overseas territory, has jeopardized its chances of reaching the $1.3 billion in global theatrical revenues. It currently stands at 1.29 billion. In combined, would be 1.029 billion. 200 and I don't know where it was at when they wrote this. I think it was at the 1.2 still. I think it was like 1, and then where it's at now, it's going to be at the 1.3, because when they wrote this article, they were trying to claim that it puts it in jeopardy, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to make that 1.3 after this week. And I don't know what day this article was written on, though. It might have been on Friday or something like that, because January 12th. Okay, so yeah, I think they're a little off on that. I think the film's going to make its 1.3. That's the only part of the article I'm a little like, it's like it jeopardizes that, and it's like, not really. It's still gonna, because it's like at 2 million, it's like 1.264 billion right now. So it's going to reach that. Wow, I didn't know that. Good news. Oh yeah, good news piece. Interesting. The acting is very good. I don't know what... Batman Begins is my favorite of the... I like Batman Begins a lot, actually. I think Batman Begins is a very good movie. It's just... The Chinese hated Star Wars propaganda in The Last Jedi, and the fact... I don't know if they hated the propaganda. I think they were just bored. It's a boring movie. It's a boring 2.5 hour movie. Is how I felt. I was bored watching it in the theater a couple times. Overtaking the U.S. box office now. Is it just no longer a get-out-of-jail-free card for Hollywood? It's not. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card for Hollywood. This is showing that you can't rely on the Chinese box office for that big boost that a lot of people do. It doesn't work for every movie. It may work for a Warcraft, but it doesn't work for Star Wars. You know, it depends on the movie. It's weird. It's oh, God, hold on. My rabbit's running around. Anyway. Last Jedi is well on its way to setting a new record for biggest sequel-to-sequel decline for worldwide box office grosses. Its predecessor, Star Wars The Force Awakens, earned $2 billion, while The Last Jedi will take in at least $750 million less than that. The previous record for sequel-to-sequel drops was the $499 million collapse that Transformers The Last Knight experienced after its predecessor, Age of Extinction, earned $1.1 billion in global grosses. Alice Through the Looking Glass collected $726 million less than its non-sequel predecessor, Alice in Wonderland. Why didn't they cast a Chinese woman? It's a good point. It's a good point. It didn't really help casting Rose, that Asian actress, did it? That really backfired. Maybe she shouldn't have been in the movie. Star Wars The Force Awakens was the first movie in the 41-year-old franchise to receive a wide theatrical release in the Middle Kingdom, and it performed rather poorly there, earning just 6% of its worldwide gross from Chinese moviegoers. With 124 million tally, Rogue One fell off from there, taking in just 69 million. Now here's the thing, though. It still made 124 million in China. That's still 100 million of its 2 billion total. The Last Jedi... colossal belly flop raises the question as to whether Disney should even bother releasing any more Star Wars movies in what soon will become the world's biggest box office territory. Yes, the movie's only going to make like 40 million there. That's a huge decline even from the Force Awakens box office, which was disappointing. So they've been able to gain no traction there. Less people are going to see Star Wars movies with every new release. There's no reason to release Han Solo there. Or Episode 9, I'd say. I don't think there's any reason. Because what is it worth the hassle to not make any real profits? They're not really going to be making... Especially if Disney's probably only keeping like 25% of the ticket revenue. You're not going to be making enough profit off that to make it worth releasing in China. What's the point? The Hollywood studio might not even make that decision. It's possible that China's film authorities may stop authorizing releases of Star Wars films there, reasoning that the import quota slots could be more profitably used on other more prominent pictures. Isn't that crazy? China may not let the film, may not let future Star Wars films get released because there's no profitability out of it. It's hilarious. It's freaking crazy. I think Infinity War can earn more. Oh, it should. Infinity War should earn way more than for. I mean, not way more, but it should be able to do $2 billion. Theoretically, Marvel hasn't had a film that's had the chance to outgross the Avengers outside of Infinity War. That's the film that could do it. In theory. But, you know, who knows? Wow, so I'm just now talking about the box office, and we're like almost 2 hours in. But I wanted to look at that article to explain this to you guys. This is the impact this movie's having in a larger scale, right? It's going to be one of the biggest sequel-to-sequel declines of all time. Now, you could say that's because The Force Awakens overperformed, that it did Avatar numbers, and it had one of the greatest domestic hauls of all time. That's a fair point. Those are all fair points. Everyone's points are valid in this, but this does make the argument that the word of mouth on this movie is not as good as some people are trying to claim. They try to claim the word of mouth on this is miraculous. Now, even though it's still making $600 million, and that's huge, it had a $220 million opening weekend, so of course it's making $600 million. You would have to drop insane to not make that, okay? It's not even close to The Force Awakens, which had like 39% declines. Even this weekend, a 52% decline. All of the weekends that haven't been like a holiday weekend, there's been a 50% plus decline, including the weekend where there was a 68% decline, which was weekend 2. Force Awakens only had like one drop that was ever in the 50s. Everything else was low, and the domestic total was huge. Even its second weekend of 150 million. This film was front-loaded. It's not even going to have a big multiplier. It was very front-loaded. It relied a lot on that opening weekend, which is not a good sign for Episode 9. It's not a good sign for the Han Solo movie, which is already going through trouble. They're not nurturing the brand. Now, I know people say, what about Age of Ultron? Well, Age of Ultron did affect Civil War. People think it didn't, but Civil War did not make as much money as the other, and it wasn't as liked, I don't think, as the first event. I think even though Civil War got great reviews, I think people didn't totally love that movie, because I think there's issues with it that people noticed. And I think that this film, a lot of the issues are not just apparent to regular Star Wars fans. It's apparent to a lot of people who went to go see the movie and didn't love it. Force Awakens was a crowd pleaser. J.J. Abrams set out to make a film that a 5-year-old could like and a 50-year-old could like. Rian Johnson went out to make a film for very specific people to like. That you have to be a certain kind of fan of this stuff and certain kind of things to enjoy this. It seems to be. So I think this is a big dividing people. I don't think this is going to help the Star Wars brand. And yeah, this is a big decline. And you have to acknowledge that. That's not saying the movie didn't make money or that it's not the highest grossing film of the year or that it's not successful. But to go from $2 billion to $1.3 billion is a big drop. To drop $750 million from sequel to sequel is just not that great. It didn't have to be that steep. It should have been more like, $300, $400 million. I mean, it just shows that there wasn't as much positivity towards this movie. There wasn't as many people going to see it repeat times. Clearly, it's going to make $300-something million less than The Force, probably $300 million less than The Force Awakens domestically. It's a lot of money. And yeah, I don't think people, even if it has an A cinema score, and they say audiences loved it with scientific polling because of an A cinema score, because that's science. That's how science works. Or anything like that, it just shows you that this movie does not have that overwhelming love they're trying to show. I do think there's a mixed word of mouth. I do think I think a lot of people are going to see it because of the mixed word of mouth, just to see it for themselves. I think the curiosity factor is part of this, with this movie. I don't know how that'll transfer over to the next film. And I don't know how this will result in how many Star Wars films they're going to make. They want to make one a year? I mean, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes, was doing one a year. But yeah, Last Jedi, still a successful movie. Not saying that, but it's a disappointment. People go, what's a disappointment? Well, if your previous film made that much more money, and your second film doesn't even really come that close to it, this is really far up, then that's a disappointment. And that makes you wonder, can the third movie reach what The Force Awakens total is? And that, I don't think it can. I don't think the third movie's going to make $2 billion. And I don't think it can even make like the 1.8, 1.9 billion. I think that they're going to see diminishing returns. I think that they topped out just like Marvel did for a long time, and they're going to have to try and fix this, and I don't know if you can. I think the damage might be done, that they might never reach that $2 billion again. Just because of how they've handled it. I don't think people love Force Awakens as much as they did in 2015. I think a lot of those factors have come together. It's almost a perfect storm. Jumanji performing way better than anyone expected. Jumanji overperforming really shut down The Last Jedi. Let's talk about Jumanji for a second and go up to number 1 here, right? This movie is, oh my god, 666 million. God, the number of the beast. The number of the beast is here, and it's great. I mean, she's also making them money, but I think she's also losing them money. I definitely agree with you on that. Let's see. Oh, wait, Pat, you don't like The Last Jedi? I know, it's crazy, right? But 666 million. Oh my God, Jesus. Did anyone predict this movie would make this much money? Nobody did. No one claimed you thought. Nobody thought this. Nobody thought this movie would make like 650, 700 million. That's crazy. Like the highest I saw anyone saying this movie could make was like 300, 400 million worldwide, which made sense. With The Rock involved and Kevin Hart and Jack Black, I would have probably even guessed it could make 350, 400 million. The fact that domestically it's made 283 million is astonishing. And then the worldwide box. This is a $90 million film. This is not a $150 million film. This is going to be one of the most profitable films of 2017. It's going to be a franchise starter. This is going to lead to sequels. I mean, this is basically a reboot that's very successful in a lot of ways. Even though it's kind of a sequel, it still works as a reboot. And this is about as successful as they could have hoped. I mean, this is huge. This is huge. This is doing superhero movie numbers. This is doing like this is performing on par with It right now. It's actually it's going to surpass It worldwide, and its budget isn't that much higher. I mean, this is great for The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black. This is Jack Black's biggest movie. This is now going to pass Kung Fu Panda, I believe. I mean, this is crazy for this movie. What amazing box office. I'm sorry I love The Rock, Jack Black, and Kevin Hart. It'll be hard for me to be objective here. Let's be objective. The movie's a hit. If we're being objective, all we could say is the movie's a hit. There's no subjectivity here. They made a movie for $90 million, and it's going to make $700 million. That's crazy. That's a terrific return. And this is Sony. This is freaking Sony. Their biggest movie this year was a movie that Marvel basically made, that the MCU and Disney worked on. And then they had Baby Driver, and everything else really didn't perform. I mean, this is a huge thing for Sony. Sony has a franchise now. This is what Ghostbusters failed to do. This is what so many franchises fail to do. I mean, this is really even surpassing so many other IPs that come out and successful again. This is one of the most successful films like this to come out in years. I mean, it's crazy. The profits on this movie are going to be insane. This is a franchise now. This kind of money makes this a franchise. They will be making the next Jumanji film with these characters, and again and again and again. I mean, they would be stupid not to. This film's going to make $300 million domestically. That's crazy. I'm sure when they made that movie, they thought, okay, at best this can make $200 million domestic and probably $400 million worldwide, if not a little bit more. There's no way the producers ever thought they were making like one of the biggest movies of the year. I mean, this is definitely one of the most successful movies of the year. Yes, this is Jack Black's most successful movie domestically, which before that was King Kong. Now, that's not adjusted for ticket price inflation. And worldwide, it's now past Kung Fu Panda 2. So this is past animated films, including the Kung Fu Panda series. So this is now Jack Black's biggest movie of his career, is playing a teenage girl. Kevin Hart, this is obviously the biggest film of him. A Secret Life of Pets, it probably won't reach that total. But still, this is a live-action movie. This is not an animated film, so you have to view it a little differently in that regard. The Rock, this is just solidifies his movie stardom. He might be the biggest movie star in the world. Can we officially just say that now, that The Rock's the biggest movie star in the world? It's not Leo or Mark Wahlberg or anyone? Because could anyone else do this, what he's doing with these movies? I mean, you could say, oh, Baywatch bombed. I like the Jumanji sequel. I actually like it quite a bit. It's not a great movie, but it's like an enjoyable movie. It's like a fun movie to watch. It'd be better on TV, I think. I don't know if it's worth seeing in the theater, but clearly it's clicking with. And for The Rock, this is his fourth biggest movie behind the Fast and the Furious franchise. I mean, that's crazy. Directed by Jake Kasdan, man. Great performance here. Great for him. The movie got decent reviews, 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's just these holds it's had that are crazy. You know, it went up 38%, then it dropped 25%, and now 27%. It hasn't had a big decline any week. It hasn't dropped over 30%. The opening weekend was surprisingly big. The weekday holds have been huge. Everything's gone right for this movie. It's funny because it happened so late in the year that this movie came out. And all of this happening, it's almost like we didn't get to evaluate this enough while it was going on. Like when It was happening, we were able to go week by week and say, man, look how much money It's making. But this movie, it's almost because a lot of it's happening in 2018, it's not going to be looked at as one of the biggest films of 2017, but it is. This is one of the big hits of 2017 now, straight up. So crazy for Sony. That was the big win they needed. Even worldwide, this should be, yeah, it's number 12 right now, and it should be able to pass it. I'm assuming just at the pace it's going. So, yeah, this will end up being like the 11th highest grossing film worldwide, which is crazy because every film that's ahead of it's like a Pirates film or a superhero film. Or something part of a franchise or something. Like, who thought Jumanji would be playing with Star Wars and Beauty and the Beast and the Fast and the Furious franchise or Guardians of the Galaxy? I mean, it's crazy, man. Jumanji, man, that really paid off. And I guess it also is a testament to how that original film has held up for a lot of people, and they're still nostalgic for it, and they still know the property and all that stuff, you know? I think we got to give a movie that really needs... Oh, I love Daryl from 1985. That movie's great. Love the tone of that movie. It's really relaxing. Okay, so yeah, Jumanji, amazing performance. Just absolutely impeccable. Kudos to the producers, everyone involved, the filmmakers, the cast. You could make the argument they really didn't make any bad decisions there. From every choice they made was the right choice financially. The Post, Steven Spielberg. I knew this would open well when it went wide. I think we all said that because of Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, Spielberg, the subject matter. 2,800 theaters. So far, it's been in limited release and hasn't performing that great, the screen averages, but it's not one of those movies. It wasn't a film that was going to perform in limited. Kind of like how Paul Thomas Anderson films do great when they're in 10 theaters, and then once they get open in 800, they bomb after 2 weeks. You know, people who go see Spielberg movies, it's not just the LA, New York crowds. It's a lot of small town America, that small areas that people go see his movies. So, $18 million opening weekend. That's pretty much on par with a lot of his recent films. The BFG had that opening. Bridge of Spies opened at 15. I think Leakin actually had a better opening weekend. But yeah, this is pretty much on par with your typical Spielberg. I think this film's going to perform well. I think it's going to hold well, especially for people who hate Donald Trump. I think a lot of the Trump haters and people who are supporting the media right now are going to go see this movie just because. And I hear it's an entertaining little romp. It's an entertaining old school kind of 70s movie. So, you know, and Spielberg makes these like almost generic watchable movies now, like Bridge of Spies, where you can just sit there and watch it. And I think it's going to perform like that movie. Might make like 75, 80 million and you know, get some Oscar nominations. But a good opening weekend. That's not bad at all. And we'll have to see how it holds, but I think it should do well. The Commuter, which stars Liam Neeson in his action film, and I believe this is the director who did a couple other Liam Neeson movies. Yeah, Run All Night and Non-Stop and Unknown. Those were all Liam Neeson movies, weren't they? Yeah, this is a pretty crappy opening weekend for a Liam Neeson action film, but I think he really doesn't... I think that kind of died off, that whole gimmick of him. It lasted for about a few years. Only because I think people take for granted that Taken was just such a fun, surprisingly decent movie, and that's what kicked it off. A lot of people think it was just all the movies, but it really was just because I remember going to see Taken when it came out. A lot of us thought Taken was going to suck, and all we liked in the trailer was him on the phone. And even the first 15, 20 minutes of Taken sucks when he's with his daughter and stuff. But then once he actually goes on the mission, that's a really fun movie. Like a really, really fun movie. And it moved well. And that's what made him a star overnight. It was because the movie was so good. It's usually the movie that sells the actors, not the actor selling the movie. And they're in that kind of thing. I liked Flight of the Navigator when I was a child. I still like Flight of the Navigator. I agree. Last Starfighter needs a remake. Last Starfighter definitely deserves a remake. That's one of the ones. But that's not. This isn't a terrible opening weekend, but it's not very good either. And I don't see it holding very well. Insidious: The Last Key, of course, had a big drop of 60%. $12.1 million, $48 million domestically, $92 million worldwide, but the budget's only $10 million, so this film's already made a profit and then some. The Greatest Showman, I was totally wrong about this movie, and I'm going to have to eat crow. Because I kept saying on its opening weekend, I kept saying over again, because its opening weekend was awful. The opening weekend was $8 million. I said, this is a bomb. It's never going to pass its budget. It's not going to hold well. That's an awful opening weekend. Even through the holiday, $14 million. I thought that was terrible, but I was wrong. The weekend after that, 76% increase, you know, and then the weekend after that, 11% drop, and then this weekend, 14%. This movie has terrific word of mouth. Terrific word of mouth. It is having very small drops. It's a movie that had a very mediocre to bad opening weekend. It's a movie that costs money too. $84 million is not cheap. But this film's at $94 million domestic, and it is going to make over $100 million domestic. I like The Gray. I thought The Grey was entertaining. But Taken was that, it was such a surprise. That's what kicked it off. Like, oh wow, Liam Neeson, because Liam Neeson was always great in action movies. Did everyone forget Rob Roy and all this, or like Excalibur? Like, he was always good in action roles, physical roles in his whole career. He was always a big guy that was intimidating. He's a big dude. Yeah, I would hate for somebody to remake Repo Man. I think it's an awful idea. But yeah, 8.8 million. I mean, I really thought this is a testament to Hugh Jackman and his star power. It really is. Because I thought this was going to be a bomb and an ego project. Because it got mixed reviews. It had songs written by the La La Land team. The opening weekend was abysmal. It seemed like it was going to get eaten alive by Star Wars and Jumanji. But now it's made it 194 million. This film might make a profit. I mean, it's going to make over $100 million domestic, which is actually really good. That's a good performance, even with the big budget marketing. And it could make 300 million worldwide. I don't know how many places it's been released in yet, but for Hugh Jackman, Eddie the Eagle didn't do great. Pan was a bomb. Chappie did okay worldwide. You know, X-Men always does good. Prisoners did okay. Les Mis was a big hit. So that's the thing. When he does these musicals, Real Steel did okay. But man, this is one of his movies. I mean, he directed this, didn't he? So like, the fact that this is going to make so much, and then he had Logan this year, you know, Logan, which made 226 mil domestic and 616 million worldwide on a $97 million budget. Well, this is just a good year for Hugh Jackman. It almost solidifies his star power, in a lot of ways. And yeah, Darkman. He was an action. Yeah, Darkman, totally. Sam Raimi. That's like an action movie. It's like, I don't know, people acted like it was some new thing. I was like, Liam Neeson was always a badass. Always. He was always a guy that could play action heroes and dramatic roles, and sometimes he could do it in the same movie. Get rid of the bad action ending and go back to the book ending, though. Yeah, Darkman, man, Darkman. And Sam Raimi wanted Bruce Campbell for that role, but the studio wouldn't let him pick him. That's why you see Bruce Campbell. He's like the last face in the movie. But yeah, I'll admit it, I was wrong here. This is doing really well. Rebecca Ferguson's in this, Zac Efron, Michelle Williams. Well, you know, it's still a big budget movie, and I don't think they'll make much profit, but it could have been a bomb. That's the thing. And the fact it's going to make $100 million, it makes a good argument for the musical to continue and Hugh Jackman making the film. And it's still got a ways to go. It's not done yet. It could make $120 million, if not more. So yeah, that's a success. We already talked about The Last Jedi. Paddington 2. I wish these Paddington films would catch on more with audiences. The first film is one of my absolute favorite films of the last 10 years. I think Paddington 1 is one of the best family films to come out in years. It's timeless. It's wonderfully made. Paul King, who made The Mighty Boosh, who actually was going to direct the film Wonder before Steven Chbosky, did a terrific job with this film. It cost $55 million and only made $76 million here, but it made $268 million worldwide, and it was produced by David Hyman, who did the Harry Potter films. And I think is actually producing Tarantino's next film. But this is Paddington 2, which is one of the best reviewed films of the year. This film's already opened in most of its international markets, I believe. But the first Paddington is a classic. It's like a Christmas classic, even though it's not really a Christmas movie. It's the kind of film that I could watch on December. But the sequel, look at these reviews, man. 150 reviews with 8.6 average, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, this is a very acclaimed film. This is one of the best reviewed kids movies in a long time. I've been hearing Hugh Grant's amazing in this movie, actually. That he kind of steals it. Sally Hawkins is in it, Jim Broadbent. But yeah, I really like the first one. It was a little bit of a hit. It was expensive. I don't know how much this film cost, but that 10 million opening is not as good as the original, and I don't see this doing well domestically. I could see this not actually getting close to that 76 million. I'm not sure why they didn't release this film during December, just like with the original Paddington. The original Paddington, they came out with it like early 2015 instead of late 2014, when it felt like a film that should have come out during Christmas. It plays like a Christmas movie. I mean, it just does. But Paddington 2, $10 million opening weekend, that's not really good. This franchise is not cut on in the States. But it's already at 135 million worldwide. So hopefully it can, make over 200 million worldwide and be a successful movie. I really hope it can be. I can't wait to see this movie. I'm very excited to see it. I wanted to rush out and see it with my girlfriend this weekend, but I didn't get to. It's Heyman, not Hyman. Are you sure it's not Hyman? I'm pretty sure it was David Hyman is his name. It's Heyman? Because I thought I saw interviews where people called him David Hyman. But, I don't know. And I know, oh, a Hyman's a Hyman, but that's a name too. People have that name. I love Paddington. I had no clue. I was bored out of my skull. I put this little bear on, and... No, I know. It's so amazing. I know. It's very December-y. Yeah, it's like a Christmas classic. Great film, though, the first one. Really holds up. And I hope the second one makes a profit. But yeah, that's a disappointing opening weekend. I think just a bad choice. Bad opening. You opened it against all these other movies that it wasn't going to be able to compete with. Maybe you wait till February, or you open the film in November or something like that, or early December. Proud Mary. Taraji P. Henson, who I'm a big fan of, and Danny Glover on this. I don't really know what this movie is. It cost $14 million and made $10 million. I've never heard of this, and I saw... Just call him Virgin, yeah. I'm gonna break you, Hyman. Paddington 2 has a budget of $50 million, so it's a little bit less than the first movie. All right, that's good. This probably was easier this time because now that they did a lot of the special effects and stuff for Paddington in the first movie, it was probably easier to do it the second time out. And they probably used a lot of the same, like, the houses and stuff they used before, so it was probably one of those cost-efficient sequels. So hopefully that movie can make a profit. Domestically, though, it's not going to do that well, I don't think. I think that's a bad opening. I wish it did better. I wish it had been like $30 million. I think that... I mean, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure I'm going to love that movie. I have no doubt in my mind. Pitch Perfect 3, $5.6 million, 45% drop. This is definitely not doing as well as the second film, which made 100... God, how much... What did the second film did? It did amazing. I mean, it's outgrossed the first film, but the first film was kind of like a minor hit that did really well on video. Yeah, the second one did 184 domestic and 287 worldwide. That's not even coming close here. But still, $45 million budget, $162 million worldwide. The film's made a profit, so it's a successful movie. So we could say that. Darkest Hour is doing terrific still with Gary Oldman, $35 million, playing Churchill, $54 million worldwide. This film's kind of becoming a hit. This is actually outperforming so many other films that are being nominated for Best Picture or Director or Acting. And really the only thing this film has going for it is Gary Oldman. This is from Joe Wright, who did Atonement, Hannah, and Pride and Prejudice, and Anna Karenina, and Pan, and all that. Most of his films don't do that great. His biggest films were Atonement and Pride and Prejudice. Everything else just did okay, like Hannah did okay. But this film, which I don't know the budget for it, which I can't imagine was too high, is way overperforming my expectations. I thought this would do, like, typical period drama films. And it's not like The King's Speech. It's not doing that well. But still, the fact it's made $35 million, it's not done yet. I mean, this film's going to make over $50 million domestically. So this is a really impressive performance all around. Who released that? Who's distributing that movie? Focus. Yeah, Focus Features. Molly's Game, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, is at $20 million. It had a huge drop this weekend. It actually did really well last weekend, but that 43% decline is a little steep. Ferdinand, $3.4 million, $270 million worldwide, from the director of some of the Ice Age movies. I, Tonya, a film I'm really excited to see, $3.3 million, making $10 million. Alice Janney beat Laurie Metcalf at the Golden Globe, so she might be having a shot at winning Best Supporting Actress at the Academy Awards, playing Tonya Harding's mother. So that's pretty exciting. Coco is just scratching to get to $200 million. This film cost $200 million, and the domestic performance has been disappointing because of that. I've even heard this film cost $225 million, but it's going to make $200 million, which is about on par with Tangled performance and so on. But worldwide, luckily, that this has really saved the movie. It did pass that $600 million worldwide. I thought it was going to, and it's at $621 million. So hopefully it can keep going and pass 650 and maybe even get closer to $700 million, because it's doing really well internationally. So Coco is a decent hit. It's not the biggest animated movie of the year. It's not the biggest film from the studio or anything, but it's not a bomb. It's doing well. But I think a $300 million domestic total would have been more of what they wanted. Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro, $2.7 million, 723 theaters, 14% drop. He just came off a Best Director win at the Golden Globes, and apparently he's the front runner now for Best Director for this movie. $26 million domestic. That is a $20 million film. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, from the director of In Bruges, which seems like the best picture frontrunner right now, from Martin McDonagh. Is at $28.5 million. It should make $30 million domestic. That's enough to win Best Picture. Films like The Hurt Locker or Moonlight didn't do as well as that. The Artist did about there. So financially, it's really not being hurt at all. Lady Bird, $1.6 million. $36 million, 0.9. It should make 40. This is A24's highest grossing film. And another film running for Best Picture. Wonder, $1.2 million. $230 million worldwide. Wonder's becoming an even bigger hit. When it was doing well domestically, and I was like, okay, I don't know how well it would do internationally. But now that it's at $230, this is a film that cost $20 million. It's going to make $130 million domestic, and then worldwide it can make $250 plus. So big profits on this film. Another one of the most successful films of 2017. Most successful film for Owen Wilson or Julia Roberts in years. Big movie for them, both of them. Kudos there. That was Lionsgate. Good job. All the Money in the World. Huge decline. Ridley Scott, 67.4. This is the movie that Mark Wahlberg had to give his $2 million up for because he got paid more than Michelle Williams because she asked for no money. And Mark Wahlberg, who's one of the absolute biggest movie stars in the world, asked for $2 million to come back for reshoots because maybe he's busy because he's Mark Wahlberg. No, Darkest Hour doesn't interest me either, but I'm still impressed by its performance. I'm not really interested, but I'm shocked it's doing that well. It's outperforming a lot of other films that I thought would do better. I mean, it's already past Shape of Water in a lot of those films. But yeah, so Wahlberg gave his money up to the Time's Up movement, just because he got paid more. Even though, let's look at Michelle Williams, box office. Let's look at Michelle Williams as a box office star, right? Her films worldwide have made $1.4 billion. Her biggest film is Oz the Great and the Powerful, which was a bomb, by the way. They lost money on that. Shutter Island, which was a hit. Brokeback Mountain was a hit. Where the Wild Things Are was a bomb. Manchester by the Sea was a hit. Everything else she's been in did not that great. Okay, now let's look at Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg's worldwide box office is $6.1 billion. He's been in a Transformers movie, 2 movies that made over $600 million. One that made $1.1 billion. Ted that made $550 million. Planet of the Apes, Perfect Storm, The Departed, Daddy's Home, Ted 2, Daddy's Home 2, The Italian Job, The Other Guys, The Happening, Lone Survivor, Date Night, Two Guns, The Fighter, Deepwater Horizon, Three Kings, Contraband, Shooter. Lovely. A lot of these movies made money, and I mean a lot of money. Ted 1's one of the most successful comedies of the last 10, 15 years. The Departed was a huge hit. Adjusted for ticket price inflation, even. He's had several films that have made over $200 million. So that's why Mark Wahlberg got $2 million and Michelle Williams took the scale. Also, she asked for no money. He negotiated to get more money because he needed time. So that was a ridiculous controversy, and Mark Wahlberg shouldn't have had to give his money up to make peace with that, because it's only practical and completely 100% makes sense why he got paid more than Michelle Williams. Why should she get paid the same when her value isn't as much as his? It's just like if, let me think, like if Jason Segel was in a movie with Angelina Jolie, he shouldn't get paid as much as Angelina Jolie for being in the movie with her. Not even close. And he wouldn't get paid as much as her for being in the movie, because she's Angelina Jolie. And he's most famous for a TV show and a Muppet movie. So $35 million worldwide. This film apparently cost $50 million. They had to do the reshoots with Christopher Plummer. What did I say? This is just another Ridley Scott bomb. He has nothing but a lot of bombs outside of the occasional Martian, which was his biggest movie. But that's one of his better reviewed films. It got better reviews than Alien Covenant. Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson, $1.1 million. 62 theaters, $2.2 million. Not bad. Let's see what the screen average on that was. That would be 18,000 per theater. Call Me By Your Name, 4.2% decline, 715,000, 7.2 million, $3.5 million film. I don't see this movie doing very well. I see it not actually grossing that much domestically. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be more of an art house indie thing. Even though it hasn't been in a lot of theaters yet, I think this is the widest it's went. Yeah, I think even if they open this in like 500, 800 theaters, I still think there's a limited audience for that movie. Just the kind of movie it is. The Disaster Artist, after the stuff about James Franco coming out, his likelihood of getting the Oscar seems like it's gone now. Especially that awkward Colbert interview. People need to understand that actors get paid more because of their star power. Just like any job. or anything ever. That's anything in the world that exists. You get paid more because you're more valuable. If you bring in more money for the company than someone else, you're going to get paid more. It should be that way. Mark Wahlberg should get paid the most because Mark Wahlberg is the biggest draw for the movie. By far, especially with Kevin Spacey being cut out of it, because he was a draw. Mark Wahlberg's he's the only one that has star power in the whole movie. Michelle Williams has 0 star power, and Christopher Plummer has 0 star power. But yeah, James Franco, the accusations came out. That was not good for it. After winning the Golden Globe in comedy musical, it seemed like he might be able to have a shot taking down Gary Oldman. And he was doing great press. He was taking Tommy everywhere, great interviews, Howard Stern interviews, talk shows. But yeah, like 5 women, including Ali Sheedy, have accused him of sexual misconduct or something. So yeah, unfortunately, we might not hear from James Franco much, and I think that seals his fate come Oscar time. Unfortunately, because I don't know if there's any evidence. I don't think due process matters anymore. Oh, Mr. Woodcock, one of my favorite. All right, but yeah, Thor Ragnarok. Let's see where that's at. 850 million worldwide, 313 million domestic, 537 million. Awesome performance. Daddy's Home 2 is at 178 million on a $69 million budget. Where's Murder on the Orient Express? That isn't in here. I don't see it. Let's go find that. Because I'm sure that film's still performing internationally. It's pretty much done domestically, but that was one of the most successful movies of the year, I think. Yeah. $55 million budget, Kenneth Branagh film, $343 million worldwide, $241 million foreign, $101 million domestic. This is a terrific performance, and this film is getting a sequel. And that's actually one of the first films for Johnny Depp in a while to actually like make a decent profit, I imagine, because a lot of his films cost a lot of money. Like the new Pirates film, it made $800 million worldwide. The problem is the movie cost like $300 million to make, and then they spent like $150. I mean, it was like a movie they had $400 million in, so they didn't make a lot of money off of it. Plus, it got terrible reviews and just was another disaster in the Pirates franchise because they didn't nurture that franchise properly. Is there anything I'm missing here? I don't see anything. Downsizing, Alexander Payne, a filmmaker I love, 86% decline. 24 million domestic, $68 million budget, 31 million worldwide. That's a bomb. Mixed reviews and a bomb. So that's Alexander Payne's first big failure. All of his other films have actually been financially successful for the most part, outside of a couple, and critically he's been loved since almost the beginning of his career. So even going back to Citizen Ruth, you know. So yeah, poor Alexander Payne on that one. And I'm a big fan of his. I actually was excited about that movie, but just from what I read about it, it sounds pretty damn awful. It really, really does. Alright, you guys have any last questions before we wrap this up? Because I didn't focus on the box office. Yeah, I see Aziz Ansari got accused too, I know. And he's one of the most outspoken feminists out there, man. Like, everything he does is feminism and interviews and talking about in his show. So it does suck. But yeah, this show went on once again too long. I even think last week wasn't this long. Jesus Christ, 2.5 hours. And I spent the first hour just talking about random stuff, and then the second half, I don't know what we were even talking about. Yeah, I don't disagree. Maybe I should start doing a live stream that's separated from this and another one, because I do want to focus on the box office more. I want you to know out there of you who do watch the show because of the box office, and you like hearing that stuff. I apologize that I haven't been focusing on it enough, and I've been breaking up too much on the chat or now, and not enough going, because I think the best episodes of Box Office Addict are when it's both. I don't think the best episodes are the ones where I just talk about the box office, and I don't think they're the episodes where I just talk about random stuff. I think it's when we're going back and forth between the movies and this, because this episode, so much of the first half was all these different topics, and then now we got all the box office in like a quick, you know, like boom, 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 boom. But I'd rather spread it out like I used to do. So going on from this week on, I'm going to try to format it more where we look at a movie, then talk. We look at a movie, then talk. Instead of it being just let's talk a lot or let's do the box office. I think that there's a better balance there. And I do know there's a lot of people that come in here that do like hearing the numbers. They do like I enjoy the live chats too. I think that's what makes this show unique, is that we have live conversations while the show's going on, and there's a spontaneity to it. But I still think there's a lot of people that come here to hear the box office results, and you have to wait 2 hours to get to them. That's all I'm saying. So maybe I should knock them out early before we go on. I'll try to work on that next week. No, I don't think it was a bad episode. Some people do watch this. I do hear from a lot of fans like, hey guys, hey man, I really like the box office stuff. I like when you talk like a producer. And I like when you bring up some of the stuff and, we didn't talk about, but also this podcast is just talking about the industry. When you're talking about movies and the quality and how we feel, that's also talking about the box office because that's part of it. But the show was created to just go through the box office, and I'm losing some of the track of that. I'm losing some of the focus in that. So next week I'm going to try to go back to that balance of movies, like look at a movie then talk, and look at a movie and talk, instead of the last 2 weeks, which have been talking to you guys almost entirely. And then not looking at the box office. For the people who watch this for the box office. By the way, last week's episode was the most viewed episode of Box Office Addict. Guys, 4,500 views. Previously, the most watched episode was the Medea one with like 3,000. But we broke and that episode's also pacing to break 5,000. So last week, guys, we did it. The Jumanji 2 episode has 4,500 hits. If not 5,000 by now, I haven't actually checked. But yeah, so thank you to everyone who's been a fan. Box Office Addict is growing. When I first started the show, it was only getting like 100 hits. Alright, that's how many hits I would get on an episode. 300 if I was lucky. Then down the road, I had a few episodes get like 1,200, and then 2,000, and then 3,000. Now an episode's going to reach 5,000, and on and the last few episodes have all broken like 1,000 or been around there. So it's been growing. We've been growing as a community. We've been doing this 6 months. And I think that it's a show that we can all grow and develop together, because the chat's just as important as the box office or my content. It's a three-way thing. It's got to be me and you guys and the box office together that makes the show what it is. And you really got to be here live to experience it. But I will try to format this better. How much do you think Infinity War is going? They've claimed it's the most expensive film ever made, so I'm assuming that. They claim it's like a $350 million film or something like that. Or like a $500 million film. I think each Infinity War film costs like $500 million or something. Like 450 or 500. Something crazy like that. Because Marvel's just straight out and come out and said this is going to be the most expensive movie ever made. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's tuned in and watched over these months. Thank you for the new subscribers and fans who've joined the channel based off the Star Wars videos and all those. Why Snoke Doesn't Work is coming this week, people. I've already worked on a bit of a script for it, and I already have a lot of the editing done. I hope you guys liked the Luke video. I worked really hard on that one. Especially the American Psycho reference at the end and the song at the end. I worked on that last little bit. But yeah, it's been great. I love the discussion. No, Bathory, of course. Bathory is a great moderator. Bathory is my little sidekick, waifu, who's always here, and she keeps things in a balance. But I think next week I'm going to focus on the chat a little bit less at first and talk about at least 2 or 3 movies before I get into it, because I should have at least covered Star Wars before we got into the ranting stage. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's watched. It's been great, and the hits are going up. There's more likes now. It seems like more people are in the chat every week. So yeah, this is growing. It is turning into something. And I'm doing my Snoke video. I only have a couple of those videos left. I'm gonna do a Snoke video and maybe one on Reylo, and then I'm gonna be done with Last Jedi. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. I really don't. I'm sick of talking about it. It's annoying me, even like having to do another video on it. But I know a lot of people want a Snoke video, so I'm gonna give them that. But I'm pretty much done with it when I'm done with the next couple videos. If the majority men and women vote that you must get your knees, suck, and bend over and take it like a woman, that's not democracy when it's institutionalized rape. Hey, Pat, what do you think of Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch? I think it's awful. I love your vids. You're a great person. Hey, thanks, man. You're a great person, too. Yeah, Sucker Punch is just like, it's just terrible. I saw it in the theater. I was in the theater. As soon as Where Is My Mind starts to play, I knew something was wrong. From the first scene, I was like, oh no. Oh no, Schneider. Schneider. Where are we going? You're welcome. Alright, guys. You did start on Star Wars. Why you went on an hour? Yeah, but I didn't talk about the box office so much. I don't mind if I wanted to read that Forbes article about the Chinese box office at the beginning. I hate that it was so late in the show. I wanted to get to that earlier because I thought that was really interesting. But you kind of have to sit through it to get to it. Because I really... Are you going to have another series of why X doesn't work once episode 9? I'm not going to stop the series. It's just going to continue on into different ways. It's going to be like, let's say the next thing would be like, why Thanos doesn't work if I don't like Infinity War. The series isn't going away. I'm just going to stop talking about Last Jedi. The Doesn't Work series is going to stay around. That's not going anywhere. I'm going to still be doing... because I like doing the series, and I think it works, and it gets hits, and people seem to like it. Pat, do you wish Pittsburgh had an NBA team? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I also wish Mark Cuban was able to buy the Pirates. Yeah, it's basically I want to keep doing those videos, just in different ways. I'm just sick of talking about the same movie. It's okay, man. I'm gonna focus on, like, I might do some on Justice League, like something like why the villain in that movie didn't work or something like that. I'm gonna continue the series. But yeah, those videos have been getting crazy hits, added a lot of new subscribers, and that's awesome. And I like making the content. I should do more live streams. News though, I am going to be starting a podcast with Dr. Blood Money now that he is out of the hospital. I told you guys we were going to be doing 3-Course Cinema. That was planned with him. I'll talk about politics a little bit more. But we were supposed to do a podcast together, and then he ended up in the hospital. But now that he's out, we've been talking, and we've been planning a podcast. So there will be a movie discussion podcast with me and Blood Money, who is a regular contributor here. The show's basically going to be just me and him sitting down and having conversations about movies. We're kind of going for a Siskel and Ebert dynamic. We want to make a film. We want to make a show that celebrates movies. I do plan on comic books. There'll be more Last Jedi hate, just not that many videos. I want to I think there could be too much of a good thing. If I keep making those Last Jedi videos, I'll end up repeating myself too much, and I'll end up not adding anything new, and it'll just be me doing videos for clickbait reasons. Like, I didn't make those videos for clickbait reasons. People think that I made them because I was frustrated about the movie. It's not my fault that people clicked on them and they got hits. Like, they get mad at you. They're like, how dare you make a video that got 175,000 hits? Yeah, how dare I? Is this podcast going to be on your channel? It is going to be on my channel. He is going to come on with me, and we are just going to have we're going to pick a topic, like something random, and then we're just going to start talking. And that's going to lead into a conversation, and it could be anything. There's no structure to it. It's going to be us just going... Because me and him have these, like, 8-hour conversations on Skype. And we were just talking, and we're like, man, we need to do a podcast. Because I've been talking to you for, like, 6 hours now, and great material. I mean, I can tell you guys, some of the stuff we said in these conversations... I mean, great material. Stuff that's way better than some of the stuff in my videos. You should go to Roundtable with Midnight's Edge. I should go on. They should invite me. You know, I need your guys' help. If you guys want that stuff to happen, you guys have to help me with that. I can't just show up on Midnight's Edge. It's like Mundane Matt. He has guests on right now. Now, I have enough subscribers and enough hits on my videos that Mundane Matt would probably get me on. But you guys would have to go on Twitter and start tweeting at him. Like, a lot of you. Like, at least 20 of you would have to go and tweet at Mundane Matt and say, have Please Rewind on. If you guys want me on Midnight's Edge, you need to go on Midnight's Edge channel and comment, hey, have on Please Rewind, or go on their Twitter and tweet at them, hey, have me on. If you want me on a World Class Bullshitters episode, you need to go on there and request it. That's the only way any of this stuff happens. Because every time I try to get in contact with other YouTubers and do a collaboration, they don't want to, they always say, like, sure, we'll do that, and then they never get back to you. This has happened to me a lot. And I mean, people that have, like, 3,000 subs sometimes won't get back to you on something. It's very weird. But if you guys want me on some of those channels, and because I think Mundane Matt would very much need me. I think Mundane Matt, I would love to just go on there and just break him down piece by piece. But yeah, like him, he's been having guests on. You guys want me on there, tweet at him. You guys want me on any of those YouTube channels, leave comments, tweet, because that's the only way they're going to listen, because they're going to see that people want it, and that there's enough of you out there to say, hey, we want to see this, and then it'll matter. If nobody's really demanding it, they're not going to do it. Because what's the benefit? What benefit would they get from it? Now, I think it would be an awesome thing. I think it'd be great for me to be on a Midnight's Edge roundtable and have a conversation with those guys. I would love to sit there and talk to those guys, but they need to know that people want that. So if does Mundane Matt have a girlfriend with the YouTube channel? I'm not sure. I think he does. But he is having guests on, and that would help my channel to get on his channel as a guest, and I think I would kill it. So, like I said, you should do a collaboration with Ralph the Movie Maker. Yeah, but he has like 300,000 subscribers. How the hell would I get Ralph the Movie Maker to do a collaboration with me? I think it would be great too, but there's no way I could get even in contact with him. He wouldn't even get in contact. Like, that's like saying, oh, you should do a collaboration with Red Letter Media. Like, well, yeah, I'd like to, but I'm not going to be able to talk to them about doing a collaboration. I agree. But yeah, you guys, you should go after the smaller channels. You got a Patreon. I don't have a Patreon. I don't like Patreon. But guys, I'm just saying, if you want this to happen, please go on Twitter, and go on comments. If you want it. If you don't, then cool. But it's only going to happen if you guys make it happen. I can't make it happen by myself. I've tried. I've told you guys, I've asked people and tried on this, and it doesn't work. So that's all I'm telling you guys. But yeah, I will be doing a new podcast with Blood Money. And I think it's going to be a great podcast. I think it's going to be one of the best movie podcasts out there. I think it's going to be up there with, like, How Did This Get Made and stuff like that. It's so, we just have a great rapport with each other. The comedy's there. Great. He's very smart. He's very, well, me and Red Letter Media basically give the same reviews on depending on the movie. Like, every film that they review, it's almost like I give the same review. I almost hate uploading my videos because people are going to be like, you took this from Red Letter Media. And it's like, no, we just think the same as them. So is Ralph the Movie Maker. He's too big. He wouldn't collaborate with me. Midnight's Edge, I think, would. I think they would collaborate. Actually, if I went out to Milwaukee, if I went out there, I could probably get Red Letter Media to do something. Like, if I actually went out there in person, I could probably get something to happen. He's more of a nostalgia critic style review show, not like box office commentary. I agree. He just does sketches and video. I used to do stuff like that, but nobody watched it. But yeah, I can't wait to do the podcast. We don't really have a name yet. We might keep it as Three Course Cinema, which was originally supposed to be me and him talking live DVD commentaries. I do still want to do that show where we do live DVD commentaries. I think I really like Oliver Harper's channel, if any of you ever subscribe to him. And he does these commentary tracks with his friends where he talk, and they're really good. Red Letter Media does them too, and they're terrific. But me and Blood Money feel like we kind of have this Mike and Jay dynamic. And we really need to do a cast. So that's being planned. I'm going to do that soon. So there will be more shows. It won't just be Box Office Addict. I plan on doing several shows because I like the long form. And I would like to have more conversations with people. I want to bring more guests in. And yeah, I would love to collaborate with some other channels. So let's all make that happen. Let's help the channel grow. We're almost at 6,000 subscribers, people. I was below 5,000 not even a month ago. And now I'm almost at 6,000. I mean, I was below 5,000, and now I'm almost at 6. So I've increased like 1,100 subscribers just in the last like 2 to 3 weeks. So let's keep it growing, you know? Oh, yeah. Nostalgia Critic's like awful. Outside of his editing's pretty good. I Feel Rich would say get the F out and get AIDS. AIDS! Thanos in the house! It broke new ground! But look out for that podcast. That's just what I'm telling you guys. The Snoke video's coming this week. Underrated classics. I got more. My favorite films is probably no longer going to be a number-based thing where I take, like, these are my 20. I'm probably just going to start naming films out of order. That way I can talk about more movies because I kind of screwed myself. And I will have a movie review coming out for Shape of Water and Three Billboards and that. Because I'm going to be able to see them very soon. So I will have a review out for Shape of Water, Three Billboards. Hopefully I can see I, Tonya. And that stuff. So there's a lot of movies I want to review and talk about, and I always have my top 10 list done, so I will do my top 10 favorite films of 2017. Also, for the 30th episode of Box Office Addict, I want to do a top 10 box office of 2017 video. For the 30th special, I want to do an episode where I pick my top 10 films I think performed well in 2017. What I think was the most impressive performances based off the returns and stuff. Now, Deadline always does their thing at the end of your profits, but I'm going to talk about like how I feel about it and all that. Even if some film makes more profit, I might still pick another film ahead of it, just because I think it had to pull off a lot more. It was more of a risk. Nostalgia Critic was awesome for a long time. I think in recent times he doesn't go at all like he used to. Yeah, Oliver Harper stuff's really good. I highly recommend his stuff. Especially his like commentaries and reviews with his friends. His friends are really good. His friends are like really good reviewers. But yeah, I want to do episode 30. What's this, episode 26? So everyone get prepared. In a few weeks, episode 30, we're going to do the top 10 box office of 2017, the films that did the best. And that's going to be fun. That's a great way to celebrate 30 episodes of Box Office Addict. You're so right. He went from doing semi-silly riffs to doing unfunny, terribly written skits because he's an actor now. Oh, no, and he can't act. The worst part of Nostalgia Critic is Doug Walker's a terrible actor, and he puts himself in every video acting. The direction of his videos is horrible. He has horrible framing. He has horrible lighting. And his acting is awful. What he used to do... what he used to do is, like, he used to sit there and he would just review these films when we were kids, and he would rip them apart from an adult's point of view, and it was funny. And a lot of the writing and stuff made sense because, you know, of course you can make fun of the wizard and that. And the sketches felt like a YouTube video. He always had bad production value. But then nowadays he just talks about every movie like modern movies, so his gimmick's gone. It's not fun to hear him talk about It 2017 like it is to hear him talking about the Garbage Pail Kids movie. There's not as much content there. Then he's just like everyone else reviewing the movie, and he's a generic film reviewer. And then he does these terrible sketches that are really unfunny. Sometimes, like I said, they're well edited and they have production value, but man, they're like, the writing is awful and he cannot act at all. Oh my god. He's so bad at delivering lines. I mean, it's like he's a failed actor who's using his videos to perform instead of just making really good content. I don't like Chris Stuckman. I don't like Chris Stuckman at all. I think Chris Stuckman sucks. I just don't hate him as a person, but God, there's not a more generic reviewer on YouTube than Chris Stuckman. He makes these 5-minute reviews where he talks to the camera and says nothing. Nothing. Hey, Pat, you want to see how bad Doug can really get? Go watch Pop Quiz Hotshot. Oh, I know. I was there during all of that, dude. I was there during the Channel Awesome. All of those people ended up being pretty cringe. They're all a bunch of SJWs, too. Todd in the Shadows and all of them. They're all cringe. And then, yeah, Doug gets so many hits, but man, his videos are so badly written. I mean, he's one of the least funny guys on the platform that has a huge following. The Last Jedi one's not so bad. You know, there's a moment in that review I like where they talk about flying Leia and the one guy just goes, "It's weird." I do like that moment. It's weird. They don't try to defend it or anything. They're just like, yeah. But that's it for this week's Box Office Addict, which is now becoming one of the longest ones ever. It might actually even break the record. I think we've gone 3 hours before, haven't we? All right, but as I said, next week, new format. No, I did not like Mother. At least Jeremy Johns was able to criticize Last Jedi, and he made like videos responding to comments and even called people out telling him that the movie was good. So at least he did that. Like, Chris Stuckman never does that kind of stuff. He's like always goes for positivity. I mean, at least Jeremy Johns had some balls. Although I think he honestly might have just done that because the clicks are better if you talk negative right now. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? It's YouTube. It's a cesspool. And I'm swimming in it. I'm swimming in it like anyone else. I'm just a turd trying to float to the top. I'm just a chud. Alright, people. If you watch Box Office Addict, you are a Box Office Addict yourself. And I am not here to help you with your addictions. I'm here to encourage them. Nostalgia Critic doesn't even get that many views when you think about it, not compared to any YouTube heavy hitters. But think it was, I mean, yeah, but he gets like 1 million hits every video. That's still pretty amazing. I mean, to get 1 million hits every video. Yeah, he's not big compared to the other big YouTubers, but compared to other YouTubers, yes. He's one. Oh, I love his old stuff. His old stuff's great. Johns only half sucks then. Yeah, he can be good, Jeremy Johns. It's rare. It's very rare. But like I said, that's the end. Thank you for watching. I'll tell you this. I'll do a Patreon if I reach 10,000 subscribers. How about that? If I get 10,000 subscribers, I'll do a Patreon. Why don't you guys just give me Super Chat money? If you want to give me money, there's Super Chat. If you really want to donate money to me, tip me for these videos, even though Google gets 30%, because I don't like the pressure of Patreon. But I'll say this. If I get 10,000 subscribers, I'll start a Patreon. Because I don't think anyone below that should have one. I really think it's bullcrap. I think when you ask your subscribers for money just to get this extra cash for making... I don't think it's right. I know it's for me, it's not right. I don't blame other people who do it. But I don't think if you have like 5,000 subscribers, you should have a Patreon. I don't like that. Oh, I know. Did you see? I want to see it. Yeah, I want to see that video. Medicare's video? I do. I heard about it. I will. Hey, guys, like I said, if I reach 10,000, I'll get a Patreon. I just don't believe in the Patreon with the lower sub count thing. It's just not cool for me. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't like people giving me money for content before I make it. I don't like it. I don't like that. I prefer if you gave me money after the fact. Well, hey, dude, it's fine. You don't have to give me money. I have a job. It may blow your guys' minds, but I actually have a job and I pay my bills, so I don't really need. Patreon is easy. You have to crap on your fans and give them an unmoderated Discord group. Yeah, I don't want to do that all yet. I feel like I gotta have more fans first. I think that would just be a little bit too. I don't know. I don't want you guys all giving me money. I don't want you guys giving me money, and I don't want to owe people stuff. I think that's really. I think that hurts YouTube content a lot of the time. But I want to give you money. I don't care if I'm the only one. I enjoyed you more than Last Jedi. It was so expensive. Well, you know, hey, dude, I made money off that video, so don't worry. You want to help me? Here's what you do. Turn your ad block off. Okay? Turn your ad block off and watch my videos. That'll help me more than anything. All of you. If that's how you want to help me and you want to help me out on this channel, that's the only way you really can. Because so many of us turn on ad block. I mean, I used ad block. I don't use ad block anymore just because I feel hypocritical. Which is painful to do. But if you guys really want to help me, when you watch any of my videos, go turn your ad blocker off and watch the ads on the video. I made money off the Star Wars videos. I made a lot of money off the Rose video. A surprising amount of money. I won't reveal, but I made a lot of money off that Rose video. It got 175,000 hits. I made money. So you guys are already helping me. That's how I feel about... That's how I feel. I feel like Patreon's e-begging. I don't like e-begging at all. I think e-begging is awful and one of the worst things you can do. Yeah, just... Well, you don't have to... You don't have to keep ad block off, but if you want to watch one of my videos... if you want to watch one, just turn off the ad block. And that's it. And you could turn it back on, but if you want to support me, that's a way to support me. And every time you watch one of my videos, I'll make money off that because you guys all watch them. So yeah. Like, I made money off those Star Wars videos, a lot of money, and that helps me keep the channel going. And I have a certain number in my mind I want to reach with the money off this so I can buy money for new equipment and all that stuff. So yeah, if you guys want to help me, just turn off your ad block, watch ads, and that's the best thing you can do for me overall. Because then you're watching my video too. So I'm providing you something, and you're getting something out of it, too. And all you have to watch is a commercial for free. And it gives me money. It doesn't cost you anything. So it's a win-win for everyone involved. Nobody loses anything. So yeah, that's the way to do it. Thank you. Yeah, I don't always make profit, but I definitely made profit off that Star Wars video. It was shocking. It was shocking how much it was. It was kind of one of those things where it was like, Jesus Christ, I would have worked harder on the video if I'd known people were going to watch it like this. But yeah, I'm making profit. I haven't, like, lost any money or anything like that. Hey, I am going to stick around, guys. I do this for a hobby. I did this before when nobody watched. I did this when I had no subscribers. I'm going to do it when I have this many subscribers. It doesn't change. I do YouTube for me. I like making videos. That's why my videos aren't always... Nothing wrong with Patreon. I don't disagree. I just don't think you should have one if you don't have enough subscribers. Like, why should some guy with 3,000 subscribers... And you see this on every small channel. They all have Patreons. They're asking, like, the same 10 people to give them money. I just don't like that. I think that's really crappy. Especially after YouTube Adpocalypse, some out YouTubers need the extra help. See too many awesome YouTubers. No, I agree. I think if you have a popular channel and you're getting a lot of hits, there's nothing wrong with having a Patreon. But I've seen people that they just milk people that cling on to them. And I don't like that. I don't like when they use people. They use that desperation for some kind of acceptance. Like, almost like, well, if I give them money, they'll be my friends and like me. And then you make a video occasionally, go, I love my Patreons. You know what I do? I come on here on Sundays and I talk to you guys. If you want to talk to me, you can come talk to me here on Sunday. Just anything. You don't have to give me money, super chat, to get a question answered. I'll answer your damn question. Can you give a number so we may have a manageable figure? Of what I made off the Star Wars video? I should leave advice more. I agree. I've been through a lot, so there's a lot. In the void of truth, you mattered more than... Well, because I don't have those things, though, that I can be truthful and honest. That's the problem. The more money that gets involved, the more you start to make stuff for people to get that money. That's really what it becomes. It happens to a lot of YouTubers. It would have to be financially beneficial to me. I would have to think that spending more time making videos... I will rewind your tapes. I would have to think that spending more time would make it valuable for the money, and it's just not yet. I still make more money working. I'll tell you this. What do you think of Dennis Prager's lawsuit against YouTube and Google? Well, I'm not a fan of Dennis Prager, but I'm all for any lawsuit against them. Let's say that I made a few $100s off the Rose video. I'll say that. I won't say how many hundreds of dollars, but I made a few $100s off that video. Because I don't think you're allowed to reveal your earnings. So, I'll keep it vague. I made a few $100s off that video. Because it's $3,000 a month from 3,000 subscribers, and the algorithm is treacherous at $1 and not a lot. Yeah, but it's still... People who claim you're making no money off ads are just lying to you. That's not true. Okay? I still get money off ads and monetization. Every other YouTuber I know still does. Most of them still do. Like, yeah, we're not getting as much as we used to do. But even, like, Andy Worski admitted this, where he said, like... And then now they're all doing live streams and Super Chat. They're all making as much money now, if not more. I mean, like, the people who were making a lot of money are still making a lot of money. If your video gets demonetized, it's only because, yeah, you swear and you do that kind of content, which sucks, but that's how they're doing it. Like, I don't swear in my videos much anymore because of that. If you want to get your stuff monetized, you have to obey those rules. Over 60,000 subs and put out a lot of good videos. He ended up throwing in the towel over the adpocalypse. Just an example. Yeah, but, like, that's on him. I hate to be that way. You shouldn't be doing YouTube as your living. If you do YouTube for a living, if it's your only job and your only source of income and you built your whole life around it, well, this is what happens when you do that. Then you can't make videos anymore and you have to go get a job. This is what so many people did. They relied on YouTube. They got so comfortable with it that they didn't do anything else. To where they thought, oh, well, this money's always going to come in. I'm always going to be able to make a few $100,000 off YouTube. Now that that's gone, they go make videos to get their audience sympathetic for them, to go on their Patreon and give them more money, and then to go on Super Chat and give them money. That's all it is. It's just so that they don't have to go get a job or work more, because they want to keep making the YouTube money. How long does it last? You're an e-celebrity. You're not even a major celebrity. Like... There's only been a few YouTubes who even last that long, like Angry Video Game Nerd or Philip DeFranco or PewDiePie's lasted. But for the most part, you only have a small window you're going to be relevant, and then you're going to go away. And then what do you have? You know, and a lot of these people seem to think that YouTube is always going to be what it is, and they don't think that they could just get fired one day. And they won't, well, it becomes the thing where you start just, a lot of people out there are lonely. A lot of people in the world are really lonely and really desperate for some kind of attention or validation, and they want to feel like they're part of something. And YouTubers really use that to their advantage. They use a lot of emotional manipulation to get people who feel like they're part of something to give them money. Even real jobs aren't the most stable thing. How could anyone... That's the thing. They're all so mad now because they're not going to get their YouTube money anymore. And it's like, hey, I get it, dude. I'd be mad too. But at the same time, it's like, you shouldn't have made YouTube your whole thing. It should, like... Because, yeah, if you can't make videos anymore because of that, then you should have never been making videos to begin with. Because everyone starts on YouTube not making money. That's how YouTube is. It's the grind. I'm making money right now, but I didn't always make money, and I don't always make money when I upload something. I just do it anyway. So this whole thing that these people try to argue is ridiculous to me. It's a lost argument. You're trying to fight against a company that doesn't owe you anything, really. I hate to say, they really don't. Google doesn't owe the content creators anything. They owe us better explanations for things, but they really don't owe us the money they give us. They don't owe... They could take ads off YouTube. They could just take them all off and nobody makes any ad revenue. I do see something in the YouTube video business. I mean, I think you can make money at it, certainly, but to rely on it, it's crazy. Not many people make a living at it. It's not that common. Okay, I'm in a rare group of people. Passing 5,000 subs is very rare. There's not many people on YouTube that have more than 5,000. It's really rare. And, you know, a lot of those people don't make a lot of money. It's really tough. It's just how it is, you know. It takes a long time to build that regular audience that makes you money, you know. So I just don't think it's a good thing to rely on. And I think it affects your content because then you start thinking about your content to how it can make you money instead of thinking about making content for you. You start to think about what'll make me more money or get me more clicks. How can I, you know, make this something that's formatted more for people? Yeah, has over 228,000 subs and still... I think you should always keep a regular job. If your whole thing is YouTube... Unless you're like PewDiePie, because he's basically his own company now, you know. But yeah, you should always try to keep... Because you lose perspective, man. You lose perspective on it, and you'll start to think that YouTube's all there is, and there's no other kind of world or life or job or anything. And you'll get too reliant on it. You will. You'll get way too reliant on it. And I don't want to do that. I have no interest in relying on YouTube as an income. Even if I was making... Let's say if I was making $5,000 a month on this site, I still wouldn't rely on it. I still wouldn't say, oh, that's my job now. I still keep my job and do what I do. Because you could always fall. That's the problem. You can always fall on YouTube. You could always be a Tobuscus or someone. You could always be somebody who has 1 million subscribers and your channel's dead. It happens a lot. You could always fall on YouTube, you know, so it's not worth thinking that you're going to last forever. I don't like that idea at all. Oh, well, that's really nice of you to do that, Rod. It's very sweet of you. Okay, now this is definitely becoming the longest episode of Box Office Addict. It's ridiculous. YouTube owes its content creators like you a lot. You guys are the backbone of YouTube. Content creators like you are the reason I'd rather be on YouTube than... I agree with you. There's that aspect to it. That is true. That the content creators create the content and make YouTube the platform it is. But Google claims they make no money off this, even though I think it's because of how they use it they don't make any money. But I mean, I feel like they only owe it as much as any other company does. You know, I mean, they could fire us. They could just say, hey, your channel doesn't belong here anymore. Bye. I mean, you know, it's part of life. It just kind of sucks. It's like any job. You could always get... There's always the fear. There's always the fear, I feel like, of getting fired or getting your channel shut down. Or, you know, people could mass flag your channel and screw you over. There's so many ways on YouTube to fall. And it's you don't have security here. You know, there's not a lot of the legality. You know, in a lot of jobs you have some legal precedence. You can say, hey, you can't fire me for that reason. You know, you can't really do that on YouTube. They can get rid of you and they don't have to explain why. They really don't. And it's all too I don't know, it's just scary. I think YouTube's like walking on a tightrope. I really don't like it. It freaks me out too much. So I don't like relying on it. I think it's scary. Because if you rely on it and then that's your income and you're paying bills. Like, this is what happened to Mundane Matt. Mundane Matt talks about this. He was paying his bills and his whole life was all from the YouTube channel. And then now he's only making like $70 from his videos. He's not getting money anymore. Now he's having to go back and get a job again and he's having trouble paying his bills. Because he spent the whole last year paying all of his bills with YouTube money. He didn't ever consider that it would stop. They didn't ever prepared for the adpocalypse. And you know that, yeah, Prager suing. Yeah, you need to create some kind of legal thing where they can't just do that, because if they're not going to pay employees, which is basically what YouTubers are employees. This episode is getting your Justice League. You have to cut 1 hour out. They could fire you for criticizing Star. They could get rid of me for whatever reason. They wouldn't have to explain anything. There's no... You don't have job security here. At all. You have none. You have zero. It's just a crapshoot. It's a gamble to be a YouTuber. Look what AIU went through. His channel got shut down and he didn't have his main channel for like a year. He had 80,000 subscribers, you know. He finally got his channel back, but he's not getting the hits he was getting. YouTube should treat its content creators better. You're right, though. It shouldn't be your only thing. Well, it's because it's still a new thing. It's not fully evolved yet. That's why I hate these corporate YouTube channels like Collider or Screen Junkies, where they're getting paid by some company to come on and say really generic crap, and they give them celebrity guests. They're trying to make YouTube television with that. and they're trying to pay them like employees, like on a TV, like on a network or something like that. YouTube is filled with people, and this includes even Chris Ray Gun, who I do like, who are trying to get media jobs. They're trying to be people that basically that are people who used to work for places like MTV or like a TRL, or used to be in Spring Break or shows like that. They're trying to be those people. They want to be people that sit behind a desk for some company that pays them like $200,000, $300,000 a year, or even more, to be a host of some kind of show, or do something like that. You could tell so many YouTubers that's their goal, is to be on something like Screen Junkies or Collider. To a high level, they want to get paid in that stuff. He is a doxer. No, he is. But he's, you know, that doesn't mean his channel deserved to get shut down. I didn't agree with his doxing. Even Patreon can flag you and keep the money. Yeah, and they can shut down your Patreon. It happened to Naked Ape. I hate Collider. I used to love it when they just got more and more... Oh, they're awful. It's clear that they get like a script handed to them or something. They have to meet these requirements to upload a video. And there's so much of that on YouTube now. Even Logan Paul, he's a Disney Channel kid. It's all this corporate crap. But now we're back to movie content, which is where I started and where I belong. We're not American, but my family hates me for having a MAGA hat. I'm sure they do, dude. Yeah, if they're all about the people, about acceptance and progress and all that, and yet they're some of the most hateful people, and they really lock you out of their little club if you don't agree with everything. And it's upsetting because there's a lot of people that I do like as people that they can't get over that hurdle with politics to be friends. They can't get over that with each other. You know, we can't walk across that light together like The Killing Joke. And it sucks because you really want to, you know, you want to be able to say, hey, well, dude, if you're religious and I'm not religious, we can still be friends. If you like this band and I don't like this band, but you can't seem to do that anymore. People are really drawing the line anymore, and it sucks. I lost a lot of friends. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and this time I'm actually going to end it, and this was crazy. Maybe got a little bit too personal here at the end. I don't know. You guys let me know. Let me know in the comments. Alright. See you bitches later.